Yes.
The lead Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1577 of the War News stream. And tonight we have very, very big news coming up here in the next week or so. That Ukraine is now threatening to attack hostile Belarusian forces on the border, and that's apparently coming up in the next 7 days or so, and that's a huge one right there. We're also seeing that Iran is closing the Strait of Hormuz today amid new threats, and also Moscow's been devastated for a third time today in another major attack in just the last 72 hours, and we have footage galore. But it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news from around the world, as we have been able to hear of significant developments over the course of the day, particularly from Eastern Europe, and also some developments from the Middle East. As we have been able to hear that the state of Ukraine and Belarus today are now eyeing an open conflict amongst the two nations, as the Belarusians are now stating that an attack on a bus within the Bryansk Oblast, which apparently killed several Belarusian citizens, was conducted by the armed forces of Ukraine, although at the moment, we have not really been able to get a large amount of information about this alleged attack, or what's being stated about it for that matter. However, the Ukrainians completely refuted and denied that the attack was ever conducted by the armed forces of Ukraine, and have stated, on the other hand, that the Belarusians need to remove specific surveillance systems from the border regions with Ukraine in less than a week. Otherwise, the Ukrainians are going to forcefully remove them themselves and move forward with destroying the entirety of the industrial base of the Republic of Belarus. Outside of that, the Russian Federation appears to be dealing with continuing crises of their own within the nation's capital of Moscow, as a third wave of drone attacks has been conducted over the day, with a large amount of them once again making it into Moscow and slamming down onto their targets below. In the meantime, the Russian Federation is racing to equip more air defense systems, even more than we've seen prior, in the city to attempt to try and deal with the massive influx of drones. We've also seen that a significant amount of Russian propagandists and spokespeople for the Russian government have continued to try and make claims that the situation isn't that bad, as everyone is still under the dark cloud of oil still floating over the city, And they have stated that instead of looking outside the windows, everyone ought to look on their television screens to watch how good the Russian military is doing in Ukraine, which isn't really being shown on the televisions. Outside of that, we've also been able to hear that Poland is warned of a looming attack by the Russian Federation on Polish territory and has stated that all NATO allies must be vigilant and constantly aware of the situation being seen on the eastern frontier and must be ready to react to any emergency situation that may arise within the region. At the same time, the Russians are now issuing bomb shelters in the area of Kronstadt Island and the Kronstadt Naval Harbor, home to the significant portion of the Baltic Fleet of the Russian Navy. And we've also heard that further strikes have been conducted inside the Russian Federation elsewhere, particularly within occupied Crimea. We've also seen that within the Penza area, it appears that the Russians are now conducting a spot mobilization, with checkpoints being set up in the streets to find any able-bodied males that can be conscripted according to Russian law, and those citizens are now being dragged out of their cars and thrown on the buses and apparently sent straight to the barracks to receive some sort of minimal training and then immediately shipped to the front in Ukraine. Additionally, Ukrainian armed forces have been holding the front lines vigorously today, inflicting significant casualties on the Russian armed forces and generally stopping all advances over the course of the day. We've also been able to hear additional news and reports out of the Middle East today showing that the situation appears to still be in a state of suspended or animated collapse, if we want to call it that, as we have seen that the Islamic Republic of Iran has now closed the Strait of Hormuz and is firing on civilian ships attempting to pass through the area, and is now stating that they will only open the Strait of Hormuz and adhere to their end of the bargain as long as the United States adheres to everything in the memorandum of understanding that they laid out, meaning that the U.S. either has to fork over that big fat bucket of cash, or the Iranians are going to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed for as long as they possibly can. Basically, either they can fleece the United States and get a whole bunch of money, or they're going to keep the strait closed and screw us over anyways. Could you even imagine? We've also been able to hear that the Russian nuclear scientists that were working at the Bushehr nuclear power plant are going to be making their heroes return to continue working on the power plant and constructing the first nuclear power plant within the Islamic Republic of Iran. In the midst of this all, we've also been able to see that Israel's offensives inside of southern Lebanon, specifically around Nabatea, are continuing in large scale, and Israeli defense forces have been seen engaging and heavily hitting Hezbollah forces and also taking heavy hits of their own, as the IDF has stated last night that 4 soldiers, which is actually the entirety of one tank crew of an armor corps, were killed last night around the area of Nabatea, which we believe is the Merkava Mark IV, which we saw burning in the middle of the night. We've also been able to hear that the IDF has made additional statements today on the behalf of the Israeli government, stating that they will continue their military objectives inside of southern Lebanon, hell or high water, and absolutely nobody is going to be stopping them from conducting those further military actions. As side news in the region, just to speak about the flea circus that's going on in some areas, apparently there's either an airstrike that happened in Idlib or some sort of a offspring of Al-Qaeda has conducted an attack within that area, as explosions were reported around the city, and out of the woodworks, ISIS actually got bombed today by the Taliban inside of southern Afghanistan, which I didn't expect that one coming around the corner, but I don't think any of y'all did either. So we'll be making sure to cover all of this news that we have from around the world, starting with our largest stories first, and then moving our way on down into the smallest stories throughout the night. And starting off with our largest stories of the day, we are going to be moving to the Belarusian-Ukrainian border, as it does appear that the two sides are preparing to get into open blows with each other over the ongoing tensions and rising escalations between the two countries. To give a little bit of background explanation as to why this isn't just popping up out of the blue, the state of Ukraine has been explaining, according to their intelligence agencies, that there is clear and evident proof that the Republic of Belarus is attempting to either scale an invasion force of their own onto the border in northern Ukraine to be able to launch an invasion from that direction, or they're going to be allowing the Russian Federation to move in their own forces, stage within the southern areas of Belarus, and then conduct an offensive into northern Ukraine from that direction, from the Republic of Belarus's territory. This has led to Ukraine getting into significantly more increased tensions with the Republic of Belarus, as the Republic of Belarus has once again played the static game that they're known for quite well at this point in foreign policy, and saying they're friends with the Russians, they're not really that much of a friend with the Russians, they're just kind of neutral with them, they like them, they don't really like them, we're not going to attack Ukraine, we might attack Ukraine, and as of today, it appears that the Belarusians are now making the claim, leaning more heavily into they are going to respond to the Ukrainians and conduct some form of military action, which now appears to become the more hardline line statement of any that we've seen so far that looks to be what Belarus is planning to work off of for the next several months, possibly as a justification for a casus belli, which is the Latin phrase for a reason for war with the state of Ukraine. As we did get to hear today that Belarus has officially started threatening Ukraine, saying it reserves the right to take measures against Ukraine to protect its citizens' lives after a bus incident in the Bryansk region. Earlier, Russia blamed Ukraine for the June 17th bus attack that killed one Belarusian woman and injured several people, including children. However, Ukraine's security service released intercepted Russian documents showing no Ukrainian drones were detected in the area at that time, suggesting a false flag operation to drag Belarus into the conflict. If it is a false flag operation, it's one of the weakest that we've seen so far, as it doesn't even appear that the Russian Federation is really that adamant on saying that this was really a Ukrainian drone. The Ukrainians have flat out denied that they would attack a bus of any type, and we have never seen any video or picture evidence from the Russians or the Ukrainians for that matter over the course of the war showing that any of their frontier Ukrainian medium-range drone strikes have ever hit buses for that matter, which means that this is a very questionable sort of an incident, and one that we have absolutely no proof off of, or at least a running track record to show that the Ukrainians would ever go out of their way to target and attack any form of a civilian bus. However, this is not...
Also, just to go a little bit further on that allegation that Belarus is making, by the way, I did repost a thing here, a post off of Twitter from United24 about this. There is a picture of the bus, and also, by the way, do not scroll down to the third reply on that tweet, by the way, if you're going to show it, because it does get a little bit graphic down there. But the bus itself is largely intact for the most part. Like you can see here in the picture, the windshield's still fine, the front of the bus is fine. There are some blown out windows on the bus, but there's no pictures of any, deceased individuals on the bus that's been published. So the Ukrainians are claiming that their SBU intercepted documents showing that the Russians planned this situation right here to make it look like Ukraine did it, and they intentionally blew up their own bus so that way they could frame Ukraine, which wouldn't be beyond the Russians, by the way. They've done stuff like that before, but there is a bus that was hit. It's just unclear who the hell even hit it. It's unclear, if there were how many deceased people were on board the bus. It's not really clear. Nothing's clear, really.
Also, the fact that this is clearly a civilian bus is leading us with a great deal of questions, largely to the idea of why in the world would this even be believed to be a Ukrainian drone? Not to say that the Ukrainians have not accidentally hit, due to electronic warfare interference, apartment buildings in Moscow, which we have seen on film in prior days, but we have never seen a Ukrainian FPV drone under the control of an operator ever go out of its way to target and hit a civilian bus of any type. We've never seen any Russian footage to corroborate that claim that we've been able to talk about here on air, and we've never seen any Ukrainian footage showing them hitting civilian vehicles either, unless they're involved in the transportation of military cargoes such as fuel and other bulk goods on the M14 highway inside of southern Ukraine. So it is very unlikely, from what we can tell at the moment, not entirely out of the question, but still highly unlikely, that the armed forces of Ukraine conducted the attack on the 17th of June on the bus inside the Bryansk Oblast. However, it is not stopping the Belarusians from making the claim and pushing forward the idea that this may allow them to enter the conflict, a justification of a sort to enter the war against Ukraine because of the alleged attack that the Ukrainians conducted on the bus in Belarus. The Ukrainians have decided in turn to not take this lightly and in fact push back as hard as possible against the Belarusians, which appears to be, from what we can tell right now, a measured response, but a very strong one to say the least. The Ukrainians have given the following ultimatum by the office of the President Volodymyr Zelensky. I'm not offended by Lukashenko's words, but along the border regions with Ukraine, there's equipment that adjusts fire on the Ukrainian population. I give it a week to withdraw it, or otherwise we'll do it, stating that either the Belarusians withdraw armed forces that are being used to corroborate targeting data for the Russian Federation and Russian drone and missile strikes, and if they do not do that within the week, the Ukrainians will openly destroy the equipment with their own drone strikes right across the Belarusian border, which technically at that point will be an act of war against the Republic of Belarus. And this is largely the Ukrainians making it incredibly clear that either the Belarusians back off of even being involved slightly in the conflict, or the Ukrainians are going to drag them into the conflict, even if they don't want that. And there is a good reason to believe at the moment that this is actually a fairly measured sort of a response and a fairly measured threat that has a decent amount of strategic implications behind it, which we'll get into here in a minute. But before we get to that, I do want to make sure that we address what all of y'all are thinking right now about this Ukrainian ultimatum that has been given, and we also have a great deal more to add on to it after this poll. But Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about it as well?
Okay, so right now we're seeing that Zelensky is giving a very concrete ultimatum to Belarus that they'll either have to remove the Russian equipment from the northern part of the border with Ukraine inside of Belarusian territory, or Ukraine will remove it themselves, according to what Zelensky said, meaning they'll attack inside of Belarusian territory to remove that equipment. So, what are your thoughts? 58% said Ukraine will attack Belarus. They're not bluffing. 26% said Belarus will end up caving and removing the equipment. And 10% said Ukraine is only bluffing Belarus on the entire situation. And ultimately, here's my thing. Belarus likes to claim that they're not involved in this war, but there's a big problem. If they've set up radio repeaters along the entire border to allow Russia to use their drones to target civilians, that is clearly being involved in the war at that point. So I would say that Belarus has basically committed an act of war against Ukraine by setting up those repeaters, and it seems like Zelensky is taking it that way because he's basically willing to go to war with Belarus over that situation, which honestly, I don't blame him really, because if Belarus is going to jump in the fray, then they're fair game at that point. So I don't think Ukraine's bluffing. That's not Ukraine's style to bluff like that. When they say they're going to do something, they actually do it almost all the time. So I'm with the 58%. I think Ukraine will attack them if they don't remove it, and I don't see Lukashenko removing that equipment, because if he does that, he's going to piss Putin off very badly, and that's going to be very bad for Lukashenko. It could be worse than getting at odds with Zelensky. So I'm going to say I think Ukraine's going to go for it, and I think Belarus is going to meet them at the head. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that I would be with the 58%. The Ukrainians are planning on attacking the Belarusians if they do not follow through with the Ukrainian demands, and there's actually a very considerably important reason why the Ukrainians are doing this right now than any other time, and also it's actually pretty decent sort of a timing as far as the threat is concerned. Belarus's military does not operate independently. It is actually a subordinate part of the Russian army in reality. And to give you all a little bit of an explanation into that, because that doesn't really sound like it makes a whole lot of sense on the face of it, but if I explain it to y'all, it certainly will. Back after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, Lukashenko became the dictator of Belarus by default and has remained the dictator ever since. However, he has leaned heavily, especially ever since Putin has become the president of the Russian Federation, on integrating Belarus and Russia in basically every way but name. So Belarus does exist as an independent country, but militarily there has been a significant amount of treaties and military reforms that have been conducted over the years, particularly in 2011, which completely deleted most of the Belarusians' independent control of their armed forces and largely made it subordinated to the Russian First Guards tank army in the Russian Federation, meaning that Belarus's armed forces are designed and operated not as an actual independent fighting force with well-rounded combined arms capabilities. It is built entirely as a support force to the Russian Federation, conducting operations on their own home soil. Right now, there is not a lot of Russian units in Belarus, and if I show y'all here the quality and makeup of some of these units that are within the Republic of Belarus, it becomes blatantly clear, at least from what we publicly know, and from what I can tell. The Wikipedia does include most of the up-to-date information about their forces and their organization. If you look through it, there's not really a lot to speak of that actually would be, say, a defensive or offensive force within the Belarusian military. If we look, for example, down here within the Western Operational Command, we have 2 mechanized brigades, and every single thing outside of those 2 mechanized brigades, if y'all notice, is some sort of a support brigade or a support regiment. There are artillery brigades and artillery regiments, engineering brigades, communications regiments, maintenance centers, storage bases, electronic warfare battalions, combined armed training ground units, navigation and topographic units, separate guard and service battalions, and material support brigades within the Western Operational Command, which largely commands the southern border near to Ukraine. If you look at that, in reality, the Belarusians actually only have 2 mechanized brigades to put up against the Ukrainians in the whole south of their country. Everything else is support, and support units will collapse if the mechanized brigades that are stopping the enemy from advancing right on the support units don't exist. So in reality, the Belarusians actually do not have really any offensive or defensive capabilities to speak of. And if you look at all of these units, for example, in the Northwestern Operational Command, say that they threw all of them down in the south if a war started, it is the very same structure. They have 2 mechanized brigades in the Northwestern Operational Command, and then everything else is an artillery brigade, comms, radio engineering, electronic intelligence, and the like. There's quite literally nothing to speak of here that is really offensive or even defensive in nature significant enough to stop the Ukrainians from just getting the jump largely on the Belarusians if the Russians are not present. The Belarusians also only operate, to show y'all how interconnected they are with the Russians, the Belarusians only operate in military exercise when there is a larger Russian combat contingent present in Belarus, and they only operate in the war games and exercises that are conducted on Belarusian territory as a support force to the Russians that are in Belarus. So in every sense of the word, unless the Russian army is not in Belarus, Belarus largely only has a policing force or an army on paper that really can't do anything independently on its own.
There is a bit of a problem, though. There is a bit of a risk to this. Like, let's say Ukraine follows through and they end up attacking the border of Belarus to take out the equipment on the border, which, by the way, just to reiterate, the equipment that Zelensky's referring to are radio repeaters. They're the same type of things that we see on the Ukrainian front lines. You'll see the Ukrainian drones taking them out in the treetops. That is a radio repeater, and that's what Belarus is setting up along the entire border, according to the Ukrainians. So there's a bit of a problem, though, because recently Putin revised the doctrine which placed Belarus under the Russian nuclear umbrella. So technically, Belarus is protected by Russian nukes at this point. Not to mention that there's been a lot of reporting out there claiming that Belarus now possesses tactical nuclear warheads on their territory. It's unclear if it's under Lukashenko's control or under Putin's control. I would imagine that it's probably still under Putin's control, but there is a nuclear element to it. Now, would Putin like start launching nukes at Ukraine immediately over Belarus getting attacked at their radio repeaters on the border? I would highly doubt that, but of course, that will be a threat that gets lobbed around probably immediately by the Belarusians as they have nukes and they might be willing to use them. I'm sure they'll probably try to hype that up to scare the Ukrainians off. But Enforcer, what do you think about that? Because that's a pretty big prong of the issue.
I would say that generally, I don't think that the nuclear threat would be that much of an issue or the extension of a nuclear umbrella to Belarus, because the Ukrainians would most likely be keeping their military operations very limited to the near border regions in Belarus, and if there were any long-range strikes, they would be conducted with drones only, and I don't really see the Ukrainians wanting to expend the manpower and munitions to conduct a full-blown open offensive into Belarus with the intent of collapsing the entire Belarusian government. I would say that that's fairly unlikely, so any Ukrainian operations will stay fairly limited in scope and generally around the Ukrainian border areas. And with that in mind, there really isn't a way for Belarus to respond in any sort of an extreme sense, like, say, nuclear, if they did have nuclear weapons under their possession, which we do have decent reason to believe, at least right now, that they might. There really wouldn't be a proper ground or a cause for them to do such a thing. Not only that, this also gears the position, especially knowing that that is the Ukrainian position, that the Belarusians stand to gain nothing and lose a lot if they do not follow through with what the Ukrainian demands are. If the Belarusians try and enter the conflict, they only can enter the conflict with Russian armed forces taking up the vanguard of military operations against Ukraine with the Belarusians in support. And if the Russians don't have the manpower to spare to send into Belarus, then Belarus is basically a sitting duck for whatever the Ukrainians are about to do to them. And so that means that they're going to be open to basically getting blown off the map. And I think that at that point, they probably back off, especially considering that the Russians don't seem to be moving any significant units into Belarus right now. They might just back off and adhere to Ukrainian demands to avoid getting into the conflict, because their situation would be hopeless if they did.
Yeah, there's also another concern that I have about the situation as well. I wonder if maybe this is bait that Putin is trying to do to force Ukraine, or also sort of encourage Ukraine to actually aggress against Belarus. Because imagine this. Do you think Putin would like to put troops inside of Belarus, but he's a little bit concerned what NATO might do about that if they see a Russian troop deployment start building up inside of, basically right on NATO's border inside of Belarus? I'm sure NATO wouldn't be too fond of that, especially if it was out of the blue. They wouldn't be too fond about that. But under the pretext of Ukraine attacking Belarus, even on their border with just the repeaters, that could give Putin a justification to send Russian forces into Belarus and then put the troops basically, right on NATO's doorstep to a large degree, under the guise of protecting their ally. That could be part of it. So I was wondering that earlier today. I was thinking, hopefully this isn't bait, because, obviously Ukraine wants to get rid of those repeaters. And by the way, I see people asking, well, what is it? What's a repeater? It's simply basically extending the range of the signal getting to these drones, by the way. All these drones that Russia launches into Kyiv, and like, for example, hitting that monastery inside of Kyiv, all these drones are being repeated. The signal is being strengthened so it has farther range on the signal via these repeaters that are on the Belarusian border. That's what those are all about. So it's actively facilitating the attacks on the Ukrainian civilians. That's why Zelensky's so angry about it, is because it's obviously, directly impacting the war and also the deaths inside of Ukraine. So I'm a little bit on the fence about the bait part. Enforcer, what do you think about that?
It's possible, but I have a feeling that it'd be a little bit difficult to pull off in reality because the Belarusians have no actual infantry units to speak of, really, rather than their 4 infantry brigades, which are the only purpose-built ones in the whole of the Belarusian military. If Ukraine even puts up 6 of their own brigades, which I would assume they definitely have that manpower to spare, against the Belarusians, they would be able to start overwhelming them pretty easily and largely open Belarus wide open, hypothetically, to the Ukrainians marching straight to Minsk, and nothing would really stop them. And with that kind of a strategic situation in the conventional sense in play, the Belarusians would request, seeing that they're a CSTO member, which is the Russian equivalent of NATO, that Russian armed forces are deployed into Belarus in a defensive against the Ukrainian forces. So if the Russians did move in, they would largely not be going up against NATO. They'd more so be trying to go up against the Ukrainians themselves, because the Ukrainians would be posing an imminent threat at that point if the Russians just moved in and didn't engage in the fighting of overwhelming the few Belarusian infantry brigades there are and pushing on into Belarus in a hypothetical scenario. So they really wouldn't be able to hang out at Hrodna because the supply lines might be cut to Hrodna if they just left the Belarusians to it down in the south. So they would have to get in there and get in the fighting alongside the Belarusians against the Ukrainians. The thing about that, though, that I don't think we've talked about a lot on air, and I really wanted to get to here, is that if the Ukrainians get the jump first, the Russians don't get to base their forces and build up their offensive plans in a perfect, sterile environment where there is no active fighting in that area. If the Ukrainians get the jump first and go to war with Belarus first, the Russians are having to run in, basically with their pants down, tripping over each other through Bryansk to try and get into the southern front of Belarus to fight against the Ukrainians. And that means that there's going to be humongous columns of vehicles either moving down the highway or moving by rail into Belarus or towards Belarus that Ukrainian drones could attempt to attack and destroy, and there would also be a significant amount of discoordination and also a decrease of efficiency in Russian armed forces, considering that they would basically be running into the battle unprepared and just trying to set up some sort of defensives to stop any Ukrainian momentum that could be offensively had at that point in that hypothetical scenario. So I'd actually say that in many ways, the Ukrainians are trying to play a bit of a master chess move, if we want a 5D chess move, if we want to call it that, because either the Belarusians accept the Ukrainian demands and they remove the repeaters from the border, or the Ukrainians actually go to war with them, the Belarusians are going to be helpless, and the Russians are going to run in half-cocked and get blown away by Ukrainian drone forces. Because we've seen that whenever the Russians move in half-cocked anywhere, the drones are far more effective against those disorganized forces than they are against organized and aware forces that would already be on an active front.
Yeah, I don't think there's any chance that Belarus is able to defend themselves against a Ukrainian incursion or any type of attack. Belarus is going to be largely helpless. I'm just mainly worried about what the Russian response is going to look like, because there's a lot of options that Putin has at his disposal over something like that. So there's no telling. And also, there's no way to know how Lukashenko is going to act either. He could start maybe backing down, perhaps. That's a possibility. But I guess we'll just have to see. But I did put up a poll just now, though, about the situation about possibly having this baited into the attack on Belarus. So we'll see what people think about that here in just a second.
And we certainly will. In the meantime, we have been able to get even further statements from Zelensky on the situation, as we were able to hear outside of this duplicate of if Lukashenko doesn't remove the repeaters, we will. We were able to then hear a longer statement directly from Volodymyr Zelensky issued on his Twitter about Belarus, regarding Belarus, quite literally is the title. When the full-scale war began, we were hit by missiles that killed children and adults, and Alexander Lukashenko knows this. A large number of missiles were launched from Belarus. Back then, he called, apologized, and said it was out of his control. I don't believe that, but that's what he already said. Now Russia will keep pushing him further into this war. Now he understands that Ukraine will respond. There's no need for extra words. There are retransmitters on his communication towers, on his territory, along the 2 regions bordering Ukraine. There is equipment that adjusts fire on our people. He should remove that equipment. I think a week is enough for him to do that, because right now, every day, our civilians are being killed, and children are being wounded as a result of this. If he doesn't do it, we will. The same goes for his oil refining sector. For example, we're doing everything so that Russia doesn't have the ability to sell oil and supply diesel and fuel to their army. Today, Belarus is one of the key suppliers for the Russian army. Can this be stopped? I'm sure it's within his power, and he's the one who controls it. As for the drone strike on a bus with Belarusian children, everybody's already acknowledged it. International experts, and it seems even the Russians are admitting it was an airstrike. The Russians will resort to all sorts of provocations to drag the Belarusian people into this war. This is one of them. And then we were able to see that this went on a little bit further in a couple of additional posts, as this is only one of three, but this got out most of the important points basically at the very start. The Ukrainians are denying any involvement in the Bryansk bus attack. They're saying that basically everybody involved is denying the involvement of the Ukrainians for the larger part, and the Belarusians better be careful about what their next steps are, because if they do not remove the repeaters from the border, not only are the repeaters at risk of getting blown up, but the entirety of the Belarusian oil refining sector could also be at risk of destruction as well. And it actually appears that we just got news out of the Crimean Bridge area at this moment. So, Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so also, by the way, just to make the clarification, it's not the Kerch Bridge. It's simply the bridges connecting Crimea with the occupied Ukrainian territories. But right now, NASA firm satellite information of the fire data is showing that the Henichesk-Arabat Bridge, which connects those two different territories, has apparently detected a fire signature on the location of the bridge. So it looks like, my guess is, the Russians try to move another pontoon bridge into place, and it looks like the Ukrainians have hit it yet again. So I'm pretty sure we'll probably be getting footage in the next few hours of another pontoon bridge being taken out that was connecting the logistics to Crimea into the occupied territory. So once again, it looks like they've conducted another attack. I would not be surprised to see the other bridges get hit for probably, I don't even know what round this is at this point, like the fourth or fifth round of attacks on these bridges. They've been hitting these for well over a week.
They've been hitting them quite a lot, like a load, as a matter of fact, recently. And it looks like they're making sure that even the smaller bridges leading into the Henichesk spit near to Henichesk are being destroyed, because it appears that the fires right now are coming from this little area right here around this bridge crossing. So we'll be waiting to see if we get any further information out of that area at the moment, but it does look like there were additional strikes on the Henichesk bridges. With that in mind, and moving us on and into our final statement by Volodymyr Zelensky, we were able to hear at a statement today that he made that he also added that when Lukashenko says that he does not want to be dragged into this war, then he should be honest, at least with his own people, because it is not he who can be dragged into the war, it's his entire country that can be dragged into the war by Russia. And that's a statement that he made today, I believe in France, if I'm not mistaken, or Belgium. I'm not entirely sure where he was today, but he did make that statement, largely adding in once again that the Ukrainians will not hesitate in entering into a conflict with the Republic of Belarus if it is found necessary for national security. We've also been able to hear that the Republic of Poland today has also put out their own statements stating that they are concerned about Russian attacks, as the Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk warned that Russia could carry out serious provocations against Poland, including cyber attacks, drone strikes, and attacks on critical infrastructure. Tusk said some European leaders have privately confirmed information about possible Russian actions, adding that Poland is preparing for all possible events, showing that once again the Polish believe that the possibility of war in Eastern Europe is still remaining fairly high for the by and large. In the meantime, however, a lot of people are still talking about this situation between Ukraine and Belarus, and if the Russians are attempting to try and bait the Ukrainians into starting a war with the Belarusians. And Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
Okay, so like the enforcer said, the question is, do you think Putin is trying to bait Ukraine to attack Belarus so that way Russia has a justification to deploy Russian troops inside of Belarus without too much NATO pushback, then now that they would have a defensive justification for doing so? So 57% said yes, it seems like Russian bait, while 23% said no, Putin is not baiting Ukraine, and 14% said I'm 50-50 on this one. And my honest take is this. The repeaters that Russia set up on the Belarusian border with Ukraine, those have a real purpose. That was not done for bait. Those are intentionally working to extend the range of the Russian drone attacks into Kyiv. That's the reason why they're there. But here's the catch, though. That does not mean that Putin is not going to be opportunistic and use this opportunity to justify putting Russian troops inside of Belarus. I think that he will. That's my guess. I think that Putin will try to do that, probably with the intention of invading Ukraine from the north, like Zelensky's been warning about. He probably won't do a ground invasion on the Baltic states, I would imagine, or at least that he won't do it on Lithuania right this minute, but he might in the future. But I think what he's going to try to do is start an invasion from the north yet again in Ukraine by using this opportunity to deploy those troops. So I'm with the 14%. I'm kind of 50-50 on this one. I think he'll be opportunistic, but it's not set up from the outset to be bait. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that this isn't really bait, because I see a lot of people saying that it's bait so that way Belarus can lob a nuke in Ukraine, but The problem with that is that if Belarus lobs a nuke into Ukraine, now there's a million other extra can of worms than if Russia just did that themselves. One, Belarus doesn't have any way to make a nuclear weapon on their own at all. So that was given to them by the Russians. Now the Russians have not only violated the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty that they are a signing member of, along with China, the United States, Britain, France, India, and Pakistan, but they also just directly nuked Ukraine anyway, so it creates the same result, but now it leads to a possibility that the US, Britain, or France might start handing out nukes to everybody in NATO like their party favors and letting them personally control and operate their own nuclear weapons, which is a significant threat. That will greatly increase the chance of a nuclear conflict, because now even a little country like Estonia could just lob a nuke into Russia if they got scared enough. And that's a world that the Russians really don't want to live in. That's a world the Russians really don't want to die in, to put it properly. So with that in mind, Russia trying to use this as bait so that way Belarus can nuke Ukraine, it doesn't really work because it basically leads to the same international consequences that the Russians will be trying to avoid by not nuking Ukraine themselves directly. So the only thing that we can say is that if they're trying to bait the Ukrainians into going into war with Belarus is to try and tie up conventional forces inside of southern Belarus because the Ukrainians went to war with them. And in really no scenario does that end up being in Ukraine's I guess you could say negative outcomes for the larger part, because if the Russians are already planning, like Ukrainian intelligence says, to build up a force inside of southern Belarus and invade northern Ukraine, then the Ukrainians starting the war right now with Belarus and fighting inside of southern Belarus isn't really doing anything at all to hurt them. If anything, it's helping them. Because instead of letting the Russians build up tens of thousands of troops on their northern border for months, sit there in perfect isolation without any attacks being conducted against them, and plan their offensives, and also plan how their units are going to move and how they're going to engage Ukrainian forces, instead, the Ukrainians caught them completely off guard. Now they're fighting the very few mechanized infantry units that the Belarusians have inside their territory, and the Russians are having to race in well ahead of time without any preparation whatsoever, with the very few units that they have left to spare, to be able to try and fight off the Ukrainian invasion that will be happening somewhere around Gomel, most likely. That is leading the Russians in a tactical sense and in a strategic sense to actually be on the back foot strategically in a conventional conflict. So I would have to say that in my honest opinion, I don't think that this is a trap. I think the Ukrainians are trying to game out the situation to where they come out on top, and apparently they do believe strongly that the intelligence they have that an eventual Russian invasion could be conducted from Belarus is sound, and they're going to try and preempt it before it can even happen.
Also, by the way, another prediction I want to make, if Russia sends troops into Belarus and tries to invade Ukraine from the north, I think that will be a very likely trigger for NATO to get involved directly in this conflict. I think it will be. Now, obviously, the United States won't be in favor of that. They're obviously going to be pushing against it. But I think states like Poland and the Baltics are going to be thinking, well, hell, if Belarus is going to start invading Ukraine, that means Belarus is now a hostile actor in the war, and they're right on our border. So we need to do something about this and stop this before it starts getting worse. I think they'll end up stepping in if that happens. So that might be getting thrown into the equation as well. That would be my guess. I know some people are going to say, well, NATO's not going to do that. They're not going to do that. It's weak. They're too weak to do something like that. But I think they would at that point, because I think they're going to be so scared that now Belarus is jumping in and they're right there on their border that they might actually act.
They possibly could, and we'll have to wait and see, of course, folks, what turns out in the situation and whether this happens at all, because there's also a decent likelihood that Lukashenko might feel threatened enough, and Russia might not be in a good enough strategic position to actually help out Belarus, and so the Russians tell them, look, if Ukraine goes to war with you, we really can't help, and y'all are basically screwed, so just get the repeaters and remove them from the border, because otherwise this is going to end up pretty badly for us. That could also be an outcome as well, and then this whole thing ends up going nowhere, and the Ukrainians get what they want, and a larger conflict doesn't begin with the Belarusians. Or the Belarusians might not withdraw the repeaters, and then they might get their ass beat, which honestly will be something else to watch, because it's not really like they stand a chance. But moving us on out of Belarus and Ukraine, and that major news of the day, we have also been able to hear of some other major news that has come out of the Moscow area. Moscow has come under attack for the third time in a row today, and this attack was about as hilarious as the last one. I gotta say that we're gonna be burning that midnight oil right here to cover this news, because we got some real information, some good information that's come out of this today. After the attacks from yesterday, the Russians have been panicking quite heavily, and they are actually bussing in, or more so flying in, even more air defense systems into Moscow to try and set up to help against the next incoming attack, which is already happening. That right there is a little air defense tower.
А там ребята на крыше ждут.
Yes, put it on top of the roof that probably is not rated to support that kind of weight.
Believe like it's going to go crashing through 10 floors. I'll skip forward a little bit, though, to show y'all where it's heading. There we go.
Будет улетать сейчас.
Looks like it's dropped it off at that point. But moving us on out of that clip, we also were able to see another one showing even more air defense. This time a legitimate road Pantsir S1, just setting up on a highway somewhere or some sort of a construction site, I believe, waiting for more drones to come into Moscow. There it is.
What's it sitting on, like top of a sitting on top of a bridge or something?
It looks like an overpass for an interstate almost, honestly. Like that seems to be where it's at, but I can't really tell for sure.
Yeah, it won't do them any good no matter where it's at, so I guess that's as good of a location as any.
But they did bring in that extra air defense for today. They're really starting to ramp it up even farther. And while that's been going on, there were the drone threats that came out in the following regions just hours ago. Kuban, Moscow, Oriel, Vladimir, Ryazan, Tula, Volgograd, Rostov, Kursk, Lipetsk, Crimea, Kherson, Donetsk, and Luhansk. So the entirety of southwestern Russia and central Russia. In the midst of that, we then were finally able to hear that the drone alert came out in Moscow. And we could see that drone threat right here. I gotta say, they need to change that logo, though. They really need to work better on that one. But moving us on out of that, now it's time for us to get into the business. A large number of flights have been canceled in Moscow due to the ongoing drone attacks, with 130 flights being delayed at the Moscow airports. 59 planes were unable to land or depart at Sheremetyevo, 51 at Viknovo, and 26 at Domodedovo.
And that's on top of the ones, by the way, that were already canceled because they're out of jet fuel. So really, it seems like to me, the Russian airline industry is coming to a screeching halt between the jet fuel shortages and also the drone attacks. Trying to fly somewhere in Russia right now is like a lost cause.
It's a tough day to be in the Russian airline industry these days. It's just never a win for them. In the midst of all that, we then finally started to see that the drones were coming in. Let's take a gander. Why, there's two.
Oh, look, a jet drone. Yeah, a jet drone racing a propeller drone. Look at that.
Wow. That jet drone really is getting that speed going right there. I mean, look at that. I believe that's one of those BARS missiles. Oh.
Oh. Yeah, I think the jet drone is superior.
Just a tad. Here's another clip. I forgot the name of this drone, but that's that new Ukrainian design based off of the Shahed.
I think that's a Maroc.
Barack Obama?
Oh.
Moving aside from that clip, we also got to see more of the clips of the drone takes. This one's largely a duplicate, but getting us into this one's fresh, but only 2 seconds long. We also got this clip. This one almost sounds like a racing drone. It's that little blip.
If it sounds really high pitch, that is a Maroc, by the way. That definitely is right there. I know that. If you hear that high-pitched sound right there, like the high RPM motor, that's the Maroc. It's a fast version of their propeller drone.
And we also got another clip here. This sounds like a traditional one. Maybe an FP1. Oh, yeah,
it is. That's probably the loudest drone that Ukraine fields.
Not that it ever really mattered. It really doesn't matter much. Like, these things are loud as hell, and the Russians still can't shoot them down over the whole 300-mile flight they have in Russia to Moscow. We also got to see this the last clip here, which is largely a duplicate of the first, showing us the explosion of the FP1 and the flying of the BARS, which we can largely confirm is a BARS missile. Moving us on from that, we've also been able to hear that within the area of the Kupotnia refinery, there's been more that happened today. Let's take a look at how the refinery is looking this morning. It's still looking bad.
Ukraine has refined their attacks into a fine oil.
Man, we're getting every single reaction to this, like, from around the world. You got Allah Akbar, oi probably like all in the same clip. Like, listen to that. It's literally like the soundboard of every single reaction we've ever heard in the world. I gotta say, I think these guys might be gassed or something. Like they're absolutely on something.
Crazy. And it's like you like we've gone over before, you really can't put the stuff out. Like once you bring in the helicopters with the water buckets, you can try to do that, but trying to put out a fire of this magnitude, you basically got to let the thing burn out. And in this case, letting it burn out means putting millions of gallons of carcinogens into the atmosphere that's going to rain down on the civilians over Moscow. So it's a lose-lose situation for the Russians.
And you know, the Russians, folks, they're very used to abuse to the liver, but they're not very familiar with abuse to the lungs as much. That's something that's different territory for them. Man, damn. Outside of that, we then saw that there were more manpads being fired in Kyiv today. It appears that this was actually today, not yesterday. So, once again, to remind you all, this is from the drone attack that happened for the third time today.
In Kyiv?
Oh, in Kyiv?
You mean in Moscow?
Oh, did I say Kyiv?
Yeah, you said Kyiv. I was like, well, in Kyiv. I was like, well, Kyiv didn't get attacked.
I'm sorry.
What's going on?
I'm so sorry, everybody. I just had a Bushism. This is Moscow.
Look at this dude film. That looks like a cadaverite.
Kind of does. Man, hopefully they get it.
Oh.
They didn't. It missed.
Oh, man. If they can't shoot down a propeller drone, do they really expect to hit the jet drone? I would say probably not. Whatever, if that's the manpads that Russia gave to Iran, Iran's lucky as hell they got the thing to work, because I haven't seen a manpad hit anything yet that they've been firing on the sides of the highways.
Man, Russia just gave Iran, like, the biggest win we could ever had in the war. They just got given a whole bunch of lemons. Like, I think if that was what the Russians gave Iran, which would be the Strela, we were in pretty good business to continue that war on. I don't think they would have shot down another aircraft again. They would have just missed them all. But we also did get to see more clips of the drones coming in today here. You can see the oil smoke in the air, nice and thick.
Yes.
Oh. Why, that one's unique. I've never seen that before. Are you sure that's like a totally different airfoil?
I'm positive that's a Maroc drone right there.
There's no way that that's Maroc Hussein. Like, there's no way. Like, that's impossible. Like, how do you spell that name again? An M-A-R-A-K?
M-O-R-O-K.
Let me go pull this up here really quickly. We got to go find this. Oh, yeah, this one is. But the other one, though, it's not that one. Like, the one that we've seen, this one actually is. Like, this is what it looks like. Or at least that's the 3D model someone made of it. But the other one that we saw looked more like a Shahed. You know what I mean? With, like, the stubbier nose and everything. Yeah. We covered it yesterday.
Yeah, you're talking about the Shahed ripoff. You're correct. Like, that one that I said was a Maroc earlier, one of those was the Shahed knockoff. But it had a very similar sounding motor to the Maroc. Also, by the way, the thing that's so unique about the Maroc, this is not a Maroc, by the way. What are they calling this one right here? What's the name of it?
Sitchin.
That's a strange name, the Sitchin. But the Maroc, though, that we're watching in our current video right now, the special part about that is that thing goes extremely fast. It goes 300 kilometers per hour. And hop back to that picture, that video of the one we're talking about for a second, the Maroc. Yeah, right there. So that Delta Wing looking thing right there, that is the Maroc, and it goes very fast. In this video right here, it's going a fraction of the speed, its top speed right here in the video. It's only going a fraction of it. That thing can really book it. It can go as fast as a jet drone for the most part.
I gotta say, it is something. It's something, you know, when you look at them. But yeah, we have to remember, folks, that this thing is also out there in decent numbers these days. And I think you said earlier that this thing, the Sitchin, was a Maroc, and that's why I was like, "Are you sure?" Because I was like, that thing looks like this, and that was a Sitchin. This one definitely is a Maroc, though. I mean, unrecognizably, definitely the case. But let's watch this one and what it does today. Oh, they tried to shoot it down, and they missed. Bro, they're missing left and right.
Oh, there's the lid.
Ой, бля.
Oh, my
There went the lid. There went the lid. Man, that proves it, by the way. Also, by the way, I saw some people saying, guys, you didn't know the Russians were the ones that shot their own tank. We covered that yesterday, by the way. The dude covering it today is a little bit late to the party. But this thing right here, it was literally the Russian manpad that hit their own oil tank, and they were trying to shoot down the Morocco when they hit it.
Man, sad days for the Russians. I mean, absolutely pitiful. We also got another clip here. One more to show y'all. The Russians are spraying so much foam onto this fire that it's actually raining down with the oil now from the sky. The foam, that is.
It's raining down everything but rain. Like they're getting foam, they're getting oil, they're getting carcinogens, but they're getting no precipitation.
Next thing you know, it'll be raining kitchen sinks up there in Moscow. Definitely not a good look for them. We also were able to hear inside of Moscow today that, according to the rat, Dmitry Peskov, he stated today that, according to him, Russian air defenses performed well during the latest Ukrainian drone attack on Moscow, the largest since World War II. Let me go back. Let me show you something real quick.
I'm sorry. Wait a minute. He said the air defenses are working the best since World War II. Are you telling me they had drones in World War II?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, like, that was like a common thing, like the German super weapons, plenty of them. I mean, like, they had more advanced drones than even the Ukrainians have.
Man, I tell you what, the Russians were shooting down the Glock, that wonder weapon that Germans had. They were shooting that down over Moscow with their air defense, apparently, according to the rat.
And I want y'all to keep in mind, you know what? Let me get this guy on the screen, on the side screen here, and let me play the audio for y'all to hear really quickly. So that way y'all can hear this and then watch what actually happened. So here you go.
Действительно, дроновые атаки продолжаются. Принимаются меры соответствующие по ликвидации последствий. Высокие показатели работы систем ПВО, несмотря ни на что. Что касается президента...
That doesn't really line up with effective air defense, does it? Like, does it?
Man, also Peskov said today, he said, don't watch the videos of the destruction, like the lid video right here. If you want a good life, don't watch the videos. Just simply go home and bury your head in some propaganda and watch the Ukrainian attack videos instead for good times. That's what he said.
Yeah, he actually said that. Like, here, I'll have to take this one off screen as well, sadly, folks. I'll just read y'all the subtitles, though, of what he said. And I'll actually bring y'all back as a treat, of course, back to the dome blowing up down there, because it is, of course, something else to see. So here's the clip again. I'm going to play this for y'all on the main screen and read y'all what Peskov said on the side. So here we go. As for the president, he talks slow as hell. He receives reports regularly, several times a day, and at any times, if necessary. Look more for footage from various cities across Ukraine. The footage is impressive, showing the results of our armed forces strikes. The Kyiv regime is in a very difficult position. The situation on the front lines will soon become completely catastrophic for them. I don't think so. I mean, like, kind of watching this whole thing on loop right here on screen, I don't think the Ukrainians are in a bad spot right now. I think that's just more so the rat speaking, and I would say that the rat only needs to be taken as far as the cheese that you put on the trap. But moving us on from that, we have one last bit of news out of Moscow from today, as we have been able to hear that Gazprom stocks have hit the lowest levels ever since 2008. Oh!
Damn.
Their stocks, folks, have hit $1 per share.
Is that what that turns into when you convert it to dollars?
It's $1.05, but it is $1 a share.
It looks like, according to this chart that they're showing here on this tweet from War Translated, it looks like it was low for quite a while, actually. Like, I mean, this is a yearly chart we're looking at right here. I mean, it's been at this level before. This has not been doing great for a while, actually. It goes all the way back to 2009.
Man, in 2009, wasn't that, well, 2008 more so, was not that good of a year. But I'd say that this year is looking worse. And, that's pretty bad when you see the oil company that's just kind of been hanging on by a thread, it seems, in the stock values, is now going on a final plunge to doom at this point. And it's been kind of doing that for decades now. But anyways, moving us on out of that little bit of news in the area of Moscow, I think we're all getting the idea that it's just not looking too well, it's not really looking that good. And a lot of people are talking about those jet drones, like those BARS missiles that were being used on Moscow. They said that the Ukrainians were firing harms and slinging bars at the Russians. And really, honestly, it's actually accurate. They actually have both of those missiles. But outside of that, a lot of people are wondering, what in the world is Putin going to be doing about this one? Is he going to be, Putin up a storm? What's he going to do? And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so what Ukraine is doing right now is they've launched their third biggest attack on Moscow in just the last 72 hours alone. That is significant because they've literally been bombarding the Moscow civilians and the government and authorities with these drone attacks, and largely Russia has been unable to defend against it. And there's no sign they're going to suddenly start defending. It looks like they're going to keep failing. So what's going to happen? Because obviously it seems like something's about to break, but what do you think is going to happen? 35% said Putin will simply suppress any dissent inside the Kremlin. And 33% said the Moscow citizens will turn on Putin, and 26% said Putin will start a distraction somewhere, like for example the Belarus situation or something like that, to get the focus off of Moscow and move it somewhere else. And me personally, I think that Putin will simply start suppressing dissent. He's already tried to do that with the internet suppression that he tried about a month ago, and he knew that he needed to get a grip on it, but he was unable to do so. But what we're seeing today as well, that we'll get into here probably very shortly, is we're already seeing the Russians try to suppress the people releasing these videos of these attacks in Moscow. They're already trying to suppress that because they know the more those videos that get out and the more Russian civilians that see that, they're going to start getting freaked out and panicked. And when people start getting panicked, they usually start running at the mouth quite often. So I think that's what Putin's going to do. You'll probably see a crackdown inside of Moscow that probably takes precedence over the air defense situation, because that's what matters most to Putin, is keeping the minions in line for the most part. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that they're probably just going to suppress dissent and try and pretend that the situation is fine. That is the quintessential Soviet/Russian move in the modern day, is when things go bad and there's an absolute disaster or a catastrophe, just deny it, completely lie that it even happened at all, and everything will be fine. They are definitely going to be getting into suppressing dissent, however, as it does appear that they are now picking their enemy from within now to try and suppress, which is apparently the migrants in Russia, speaking of which.
There's that dude I was like talking about last night, bro. Click on that picture. Let's see that larger right here.
Blood was overstemmy to hell.
He was running from the Russian man path first. Then he pointed up at the sky right here and said, "Look, it's a Ukrainian drone." You can tell that dude's actually legitly scared like shitless right there. You can tell by the look in his eyes. He is like legit scared shitless running around right there. Also, still have no idea. I'm going to bring this up again tonight. What was this dude doing on the highway? What was he doing here? We'll never know. But you can tell, though, this dude was clearly freaked out.
Definitely. Definitely, without a doubt, this guy was freaked out. But the Russian war bloggers have started to identify a new enemy in the aftermath of the Ukrainian drone attacks in Moscow, which are the migrants, pictured here, who have appeared in many videos of the strikes. They are calling for severe punishments of those who have violated the government's censorship regulations. So, it looks like they're trying to find their new public enemy number one, and it's now anybody who isn't a Russian that's in Russia. This is going to pose a little bit of a problem, however. Many people here in America are kind of told this whole propaganda story about how Russia is generally for Russians. There aren't any foreigners that live inside the Russian Federation in any large numbers, and if they do, they're told that they're not welcome and they need to go back to where they came from. That's not actually the case, though. In the reality of the Russian Federation, they have lost so many men in Ukraine that they have actually had to funnel in millions of migrant laborers, usually from places like India and Pakistan, Central Africa, and elsewhere, to be able to fill in the labor pool that it now no longer exists inside of Russia. Because of this, if you go and look at any videos that Russian military bloggers or any Russian bloggers put out, you will see a significant amount of migrant workers inside the Russian Federation. And the problem is that if they try and crack down on this group, which usually would mean that they're going to deport them for whatever crimes they've committed and return them back to wherever they came from, they're going to start knocking out millions of people that they had to bring in to replace the workforce that they've lost because of the casualties they've sustained in the war. So it's largely a lose-lose situation for the Russians. Either they let them continue to film the stuff, or they start mass deporting a load of these migrant laborers that they brought in, and then they start losing millions of workers in the manpower pool that they will now be seeing as a significant shortage. There aren't any Russians to replace them, that's why they're there. So I'd have to say, it's not really looking too good for them. Also looking like they're not really living up to that propaganda maxim that they were always talking about in Russia. Kind of a little odd how they don't live what they preach, interesting. But anyways, moving us on from that, we also were able to see that the Russians are trying to figure out, though, how to deplete that labor pool as quickly as they can. Down in Penza today, they've actually set up a checkpoint, and they are stopping any cars with any able-bodied men in them, telling the cars to step out, telling the men to step out of the cars, or the cars to step out of the men, and then putting them in buses and sending them to the front.
I bet they didn't stop the Aston.
Oh, no, he bribed them.
Oh, yeah. Allegedly.
Allegedly.
But, I bet you don't stop the people with money. Like, it's blatant in Russia how that works. Like, if you have money in Russia, no, that part's not allegedly. But in Russia, if you have money, if you have status, you get all kinds of perks because they operate like an oligarchy, because they are an oligarchy by every sense of the word. So I'm sure the dude, also, by the way, Safety Green, he's going to make sure that he's going to be seen in this one.
He's visibly here. But moving us on out of that whole deal, they are starting some little mobilizations here and there, forced conscriptions on the street. They call that press ganging in most parts of the world, but in Russia, they call that doing your patriotic duty. Meanwhile, up in Kronstadt, the benevolent and wise Putin the Bold has decided to start issuing bomb shelters throughout Kronstadt Island. This is because the last attacks showed that the town of Kronstadt, near to the Baltic Sea Fleet's naval headquarters and main port, is generally unequipped to deal with Ukrainian attacks. So they've decided to put these out. They're literally concrete boxes that you walk into, and hopefully it protects you against attacks. That's all it is. But they're putting loads of them out there in Kronstadt right now. I mean, there's like a dozen of them out there right now. Also, by the way, if y'all don't know, Kronstadt looks like a hellhole, so I don't really think a Ukrainian drone attack will be doing anything to hurt the image of Kronstadt, say, because, if you look at it, this is Kronstadt, so, what is a Ukrainian drone attack really going to do to a place like this?
Yeah, I don't know really. Those shelters they keep putting out here, like those concrete, just like blocks basically that are hollowed out. It's like, does that really work? It's like, is there even a door on the front of it? Because it looks like it's just a hole at the front of the box where you just walk into it. It's like, is there anything even shielding you from the front entrance?
Not really. If something blows up at the front of it, you're just kind of screwed. All the shrapnel is going to fly straight in through the open door. So the answer is no. You just kind of hope the explosion happens not in front of the door.
Yeah, really. It seems like a lot of people were saying in the chat it looks like a concrete vault. It really seems like that, like more like a coffin. Really, to the most part, is there's not really a whole bunch protecting you. Like, for example, let's say Ukraine launched a whole bunch of FPV drones from the balloons that they've recently started doing. Let's say they do that in Moscow and they go around looking for people. Not that they would hit civilians intentionally, but just making a point here. The one of those drones could go straight into that concrete box. Like, even if Russian forces were hiding in there, and they're finished. There's nothing protecting you.
Yeah, it's not really that much of an effective defense. It's the cheapest sort of a bomb shelter that could ever be made, just so that way they can say that they're putting them out there. But moving us on out of this whole area of Eastern Europe for a minute, and generally out of the whole of Europe, and moving us on down into the Middle East, we do have some interesting news and developments coming out of this area today as well. But before we get on into all of those interesting developments that have come out of the Middle East and the rest of the news that we have from the war in Ukraine, I do want to say a huge thanks to everybody who has been watching the show tonight. We are absolutely honored and greatly appreciative to know that at the peak tonight, we've had 17.2 thousand people here, and 73,000 people have watched this stream over just the past hour and 8 minutes. That's quite a lot of people. As a matter of fact, folks, that's actually more people in the first hour of the show tonight than we had yesterday during the first hour. And weirdly enough, we reached like 20,200 live viewers yesterday. I don't really understand how the math is mathing on any of that, but beyond that, we do greatly appreciate each and every single one of y'all being here. Whether YouTube is accurately counting y'all or not, we're not really sure, but we are still happy to have y'all here because we love to know that so many people continue to enjoy this channel as their primary source of news and help us to be able to see that we have folks to tell the news to every day. I hope that we've done well so far tonight. We still have a long ways to go in the news and a lot of crazy developments to speak of, to say the least, out of the Middle East and the rest of Ukraine. But before we get on into that, I do want to take a brief moment to address 3 questions in the chat, and then we're going to be moving on to the rest of the news for the night. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our first of the 3 super chats here, and then getting right back to our news. This one goes to none other than Con45, and thank you very much, Con, for that $50 support right there, which is the largest super chat of the night thus far, and we do appreciate that very, very much. And Con said the 2 Russian soldiers caught on camera with the malfunctioning manpad launchers that ended up sending the top off a Russian oil tank into the ozone layer must be recognized as heroes of Ukraine, and they created a historical video and photo op. And do you agree? I would agree 100%, honestly. But, you know, in reality, I'm sure the Russians are looking for those guys. I'm sure they're looking very, very closely for where they went, because I'm sure that they would love to give them a medal for that. So if they're looking for the migrants, which the Russians are already doing for merely filming the situation, they are almost certainly going to be hunting down those manpad launchers. If it's the Kadyrov, I hope Kadyrov comes along and saves them or something, because I think Putin wants to have a word with them. But Enforcer, what say you?
I actually heard that they were looking to give them metal, as in lead. Not any sort of a military award, just pure lead via the Makarov. But outside of that, though, I would have to say I think that they ought to be awarded. I think that would be something that would actually be pretty hilarious if the Ukrainians could track down the names of those manpad operators and issue out to the 2 that were the most likely ones there that fired off the manpad at the tank. They ought to give them the award Hero of Ukraine, just to rub it in the face of the Russians that they were the ones who blew up the oil tank that created the whole propaganda coup, basically, that the Ukrainians got out of the whole deal. And so I gotta say, a humongous thanks to you for that incredible support, Con45, and helping this channel to keep it running. And I also gotta say, that's a very astute observation there. And if the Ukrainians had any propaganda sense, they'd give those guys a medal, because they truly did the Ukrainians wonders with how they handled them manpads. Also, they ought to give an award, call it the Hero Factory of Strela, the way they produced those manpads so well. I mean, they did an amazing job as well. I mean, we got to give everybody in Russia a round of applause. We have to give the Russian Ministry of Defense and the Russian National Police a round of applause for how ineffective they were at coordinating. We got to give the manpad factory that produced those manpads a round of applause for producing them so shittily. We got to give the Russian army itself a round of applause for poorly training their fire groups. I mean, there were so many people that failed at every level in Russia for that to even happen, that you really got to give the whole of Russia a round of applause. If anyone's going to beat the Russians, it's going to be the Russians. And it's really an amazing thing to know that Russia is on our side against the Russians. But a huge thanks to you.
Don't forget the Kadyrov. Please don't forget them, because remember, the whole reason Ukraine was able to invade into mainland Russia, down there near, what was the area? Kursk it was, I believe they invaded into, into mainland Russia a while back. The only reason that Ukraine was able to do that is because of the Kadyrov, because they were out for lunch right as the Ukrainians came in to invade. And because they were eating a ham sandwich, Ukraine was able to go into Russian territory and take a whole bunch of it and put Russia on the back foot. Now it could be that if it's proven that the Kadyrov were the ones that allowed that famous picture to be taken inside of Moscow as well, because I would assume they were also out for lunch yet again right when they were needed. So really, the Kadyrov are hungry people. They're hungry. They love to have some more, and they love to let Putin have a lot less.
Man, the Russians were, what the Ukrainians, where are our guys? Meanwhile, the Kadyrovites, delicious.
Always out for lunch, those Kadyrovites. Whenever they're needed, it's always lunch.
Man, honestly, man, that was the funniest thing ever. I remember when the second-hand man of the Kadyrovites literally came out and said, well, we weren't there because we were on lunch. Meanwhile, while he's saying that there was like 200 Kadyrovites in a bunker encircled on the border. Remember that? And the Ukrainians were just hammering the bunker that they were all stuck in?
Yeah. Also,
oh, my God.
Also, by the way, I see people saying, what the hell is a Kadyrov? If I have it right, that's the special forces of the Chechens, I believe. That's what they are, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that's why I thought as well. They're Chechens, so they're obviously from Chechnya, and they're led by Kadyrov, so they're called Kadyrovites. So that's who they are right here, by the way. They look a little ragtag, even in their best pictures.
When was this taken? 2004? No wonder. They've gotten much more advanced nowadays. That's what they looked like at the beginning of the war. See, this guy's got a boonie hat now. He's way up there, like way up there compared to 2004. And this guy's got a scraggly beard and what looks like a Baofeng radio. We can see them getting ready for their little propaganda photo op. I mean, it was something else. Here's another picture of them. They really look well equipped. Truth is, folks, these guys suck terribly. They're so bad they don't even let them on the front anymore. Funnily enough, the Russians won't even let them there. Let's see here. Anything else I can show you all about them? Not really. Oh, wait a minute, they do have this little thing, the Akhmat armored car, which is special to them, because it's named after their little Akhmat group, and Ramzan Kadyrov and all that. But yeah, that's their little special armored car. That's basically like the only thing unique about their unit. And this thing got blown up like by the dozens in Ukraine. I didn't really see any of them survive going to Ukraine. But anyways, with that, I hope we have addressed that well, at least the best we can. And with that, it's time for us to get on into the second question of the segment.
And our second one here goes to none other than Eric Brown. And thank you very much, Eric, for that $50 support. And we do appreciate that very, very much as well. Very generous of you. He said, a bribe for the Artemis II retrieval clip in the Navy section of the intro.
Hey, and a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Eric Brown. And I'm very happy to know that you noticed that and appreciated it. I put together the entire Armed Forces medley through DVids, an amazing website that allows you to get all the footage you ever need. And it was one hell of a feat to put that thing together. But I'm happy to know that a lot of people appreciate the visuals that were put with the music, because I tried to make sure that it was an absolute extravaganza of American pride and patriotism on film and music. And I hope that it shows every single night. I thank you, Eric Brown, for that amazing support and appreciating the finer details of the clips that I used to be able to make that intro a reality. And so a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we're on the next one, the last question of the segment.
In our last one of the segments, going to go to Jack Ray. And thank you, Jack, as well, for the $31 support, and we do appreciate it. He said 1960. Oh, he's got a day in history, it looks like. He said 1960, May 1st, the USSR downs a US U-2 spy plane, and an SA-2 SAM shoots down one of its own MiG-20 or MiG-19 fighters, and the USSR self-owning with SAMs since 1960.
And I think that was the one that involved the shoot down of Gary Powers. I'm pretty sure. Yes, it was. It actually was. Let me go to there here real quick. You can actually see that they still have the remnants of that U-2 spy plane in Moscow at the museum. They're still living on that high 60 years later. Sadly, folks, I'd love to say that we have something similar to this in the United States of America, but we've shot down so much Russian shit that it isn't even really worth remembering. Most of it was left in the fields where we shot the stuff down. Not that we shot down direct Soviet aircraft, but we did shoot down their aircraft in other places like Iraq, and Iran and other places like that. So a little bit interesting, when you come to think of it. And also, let me see if I can show you all the surface-to-air missile that they use. Here it is. The SA-2. It looks old now, but back in the day, this was cutting edge. Actually, this was the first missile that was actually able to reach the U-2 spy plane at high altitude. And so I'm going to say a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running. And we cannot go, folks, without mentioning the ugliest Soviet aircraft. Well, it's not the ugliest. This would be a bit of an exaggeration. There are others out there that really hold that name, but I've got to show y'all one of the ugliest Soviet aircraft that was ever made that this thing did shoot down on the same day. Let me get a picture of it for y'all. Let me get a little picture of it. A good one. Really show it off here. Here we are. The MiG-19. It's kind of ugly. But outside of that, though, yeah, that's the one that they also shot down. The Russians, they're just not good at air defense. But anyways, a big thanks to your support and helping this channel to keep it running, and I hope that has addressed that incredibly well, Jack Ray. And a big thanks to you once again for helping this channel to keep on running and pointing out another embarrassment of the Soviet Union and the modern-day Russian Federation as well. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again, and it's now time for us, folks, to move on and into the middle of the East. Today, folks, we've been able to hear that the Memorandum of Understanding has continued to deteriorate into a state of collapse, as the Islamic Republic of Iran did announce that they were closing the Strait of Hormuz. This radio broadcast here, which appears to have been issued in Farsi, actually states the following in English. Since Israel's withdrawal from Lebanon and the complete lifting of the naval blockade and the withdrawal of American terrorist forces from the Persian Gulf and the region are among the main conditions of the agreement between Iran and the United States, the Strait of Hormuz will remain closed until these two conditions conditions are met. All ships are ordered not to approach the Strait of Hormuz for their own safety and health. Any vessel that defies this order will be targeted. That was a statement by the IRGC today within the Strait of Hormuz, meaning that as of right now, the Strait of Hormuz is once again closed. We can see that there is shipping traffic moving through the area, however, but according to this claim, the strait is closed. We also were able to see that once again, the Iranians did reiterate today through their foreign ministry that the talks, that says that talks for a permanent deal with the U.S. will only start after these MOU clauses are fulfilled. A permanent end to the war in Lebanon, a complete lifting of the U.S. blockade, the U.S. issuing waivers for Iranian oil, and releasing Iran's frozen assets. So the Iranians are making it clear that they're running the show and that they want their demands met before they ever reopen the Strait of Hormuz, at least according to their claims. We then were able to hear that apparently the Iranians had closed the ship and were firing warning shots at some vessels that were attempting to pass through, and then at the ultimate, I guess you could say, apex of the story here right before we got on air, the Iranians then denied closing the Strait of Hormuz, and the Ministry for Foreign Affairs spokesperson Bakai called the claims baseless and said commercial shipping continues under the June 18th ceasefire memorandum. And generally, it appears that is true at the moment because we are seeing a decent amount of ships using the Iranian toll booth to be able to flow in and out of the area, even on Marine Tracker right now. But we're not entirely sure what was up with all the other reports and the actual radio broadcasts that were recorded in the strait that made it fairly clear that they were going to be shutting down the strait and firing upon any ships that attempted to pass through. We've also been able to see that additionally, in the meantime, the Israelis are still going ham on the Hezbollah forces within southern Lebanon. And we were able to see that there were further airstrikes within the area today, including these right here, which were conducted apparently by the Israeli Air Force. As we can see, their guided explosives landing near to what they claim to be Hezbollah sites in southern Lebanon, striking them and destroying them.
Hezbollah.
Hezbollah.
Oh man, I tell you what, Hezbollah's getting a bit of a thrashing out here, really. But I've seen also, just to be straight up honest, I've seen the Israelis getting a thrashing too. It looks like a couple of their tanks are getting hit again today.
It really does, honestly. We're about to be getting to that here in just a moment, after we get through all of these airstrikes. We were able to see another airstrike in Nabatea today inside of southern Lebanon, and we've also been able to hear that there is a new operation tonight for the Israelis to attempt to take the hill, the Ali al-Tahrir Hill, near to the city of Nabatea in southern Lebanon. Right now, they are still engaged in those clashes, and we were able to see a little bit of it right here.
Is the hill where the bunker's at?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think that command post for Hezbollah is probably up there. That's why they were trying to make a run on it.
And we see that they are quite barraging the whole area, the entire zip code. We also were then able to see that an Israeli tank column appears to have been burning in the distance near to the area of the city of Nabatea, and also the Israelis did report today, according to the IDF, that 4 Israeli soldiers of the IDF's tank corps, which is the exact number of crew members inside of a single Merkava Mark IV, were apparently killed last night in a Hezbollah attack, most likely within the area of Nabatea. So it does appear that the Hezbollah forces have confirmed knocked out a tank along with its entire crew during the night last night, and we might have actually shown that hit on film with the Kornet ATGM appearing to have hit the side of the Merkava while it was already burning at that point in the clip. Moving us on into Israel, we have been able to hear that the Israelis are putting out statements that certainly make it seem like they're not going overboard at all, as we were able to hear that the Israeli National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, called for a major escalation in Lebanon, saying that for every tear of an Israeli mother, 1,000 Lebanese mothers should cry. All of Lebanon should burn. That sounds great.
That dude's always saying crazy shit. That dude's crazy as hell right there. That Ben-Gvir guy, he's a lunatic.
Yeah, it's like, gee, that's really making the argument that, Israel isn't going overboard and wiping out civilians really well, clearly not feeding into that fire. But then Ben-Gvir urged Israel to ignore outside pressure, including from the U.S., and said that measured responses are not enough. In the Middle East, you need to go crazy, erase, defeat terror. Dang. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, this guy kind of has a lot in common with the people who were in charge in Germany in the 1930s. I mean, that kind of rhetoric right there. That's just tantamount to just basically saying that we ought to not we, but Israel ought to conduct war crimes. I mean, those are pretty nuts claims. So of course we can see that some elements of the Israeli government are responding clearly in a rational sense to what's going on.
Also, by the way, I was trying to go see the source of this, by the way, of where he said this allegedly. Apparently, he wrote it in a Twitter post, but X took it down because they said it's in the public interest to take the post down. Apparently, it violated the rules on X. So it was bad enough for even Twitter to take it down. Let me make sure this is his account right here. It just does appear to be his account. It's got the Twitter tag Itamar Ben Gavir. So it does appear to be his account right here. It's got 360,000 followers. So it says here, translated from Hebrew, for every tear of an Israeli mother, 1,000 Lebanese mothers should weep. All of Lebanon must burn, in his words. Obviously, that's a heinous thing to say, by the way. That's absolutely absurd. You know, that's the kind of junk right there that makes people turn against Israel, that type of talk right there. And that's also, you know, the stuff that people criticize Israel for that's happening inside of Gaza.
And it's really hard, folks, for some people to say, well, Israel clearly isn't following through with those sorts of claims when you look at Gaza. Like, for example, like I'll show y'all here really quickly. When you look at a place like Bet Hanun, it's completely destroyed. I mean, like you can even see it on satellite. Not a building was left standing. And there's no way, there is no way that you can make the claim that every single building had a Hamas fighter inside of it. Like, there's just not that many Hamas fighters for every building to have one in it. So they just went through and were carpet bombing cities inside of Gaza, wiping out endless amounts of civilians along with it, because they said somewhere in there's probably a Hamas fighter. And when it comes to that, I got to say, folks, I understand that there is a bit of a difficult nuance when it comes to engaging irregular forces like Hamas and Hezbollah, in the fact that they generally do blend in with civilian populaces and also use them as human shields. However, this right here shows that there was absolutely no rules of engagement to speak of. And I mean, you can see this replicated throughout the wider areas of the region. There was absolutely no rules of engagement to speak of. They just carpet bomb entire areas of the cities and wipe out, according to the UN, tens of thousands of civilians within this area during these airstrikes. And when you see people in the Israeli government making claims like Ben Gur that there needs to be 1,000 Lebanese mothers that weep for
Bro,
every Israeli one.
It's Ben Gavir, by the way. It's not Ben Gur.
I'm calling him Ben Gur. I mean, who cares? Like who really cares? But like when you see people like him saying that 1,000 Lebanese mothers must weep for every Israeli one, it's kind of hard to kind of distance the claim that the Israelis aren't conducting unnecessary attacks against civilian groups when you have claims like those coming out from Israeli government officials, or statements or calls to action like that. But we also were able to hear additionally that apparently the Israelis also stated today that they've well, at least according to U.S. officials, I need to make that clear, that Israel and Hezbollah agreed to a ceasefire effective 4 p.m. local time on Friday. This is probably like the 9th one, and as this meme says right here, I've seen this one. It's a classic, and it really is. It's one hell of a classic at this point. This will last maybe 2 hours. And then finally, we were able to hear that some Israelis are stating that generally the whole situation is pointless. And this is what some people in Israel are now claiming. Even the Democratic Front is late because they don't know what the message page wants to say to the public this time. A shame and a disgrace like no other. We are a puppet of American rule. Your ballot paper is worth nothing. There is no point in voting. At the end of the day, we are just another star on the American flag. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, I'm not even sure how to take that, to be honest.
I'm not even sure either. I don't really know. I mean, what's the like? What's the complaint here? Sir, what's your complaint? My steak is too buttery and my lobster is too juicy. It's like I don't even get it. Like I don't know. But anyways, moving on from that whole statement that some Israelis were making today, apparently on social media. A lot of people are talking about what's going on right now with the Strait of Hormuz and everything else, as Israel is continuing to battle with Hezbollah in Lebanon, and it does appear that the Iranians are teetering on closing the strait. It doesn't look like they've done it just yet, but they were snapping into it today and appear to have backed off at the last minute, and it looks like they might be conducting a full shutdown possibly tomorrow or in the next coming days. And so, Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so the one point that's messing up the entire memorandum of understanding that the U.S. is so desperate to keep intact, by the way, is the Israeli battles with Hezbollah inside of Lebanon, because Hezbollah keeps trying to push the envelope like these terrorist groups love to do by launching rockets at northern Israel to hurt civilians, and Israel responded by doing an invasion. That's what they did. So now, allegedly, Iran has closed the Hormuz Strait, but that's a little bit up for debate right now. It appears to be the traffic on the marine tracker showing stuff moving through. through. But even outside of that, though, there's another problem. The Iranians are not negotiating, they're not going to Switzerland, and they're not talking with the United States during that 60-day period that's outlined in the MOU until Israel abides by their demands to withdraw from Lebanon. So essentially, the deal's collapsed, regardless of what's happening with the Hormuz Strait, it's still collapsed. So what is the U.S. going to do in response to the entire thing falling apart? It looks like people across the board are all over the place in this one. 34% said the U.S. will wait the 60 days to attack, like outlined in the MOU, while 32% said the U.S. will not restart attacks ever on Iran, and 15% said Iran will negotiate again very soon. So, on this one, I would say this. I think the U.S. is going to try to push negotiations at all costs. They're going to start putting pressure on Israel like we've never seen before to basically stop defending themselves and back off completely and just let Hezbollah do what they want so that way the U.S. can claim a victory. That's what they're going to try to do. But Israel is not going to abide by that because, of course, they're a sovereign country and they're not going to simply just give up, defending their country just because the U.S. says so. So what's going to happen instead, like I outlined last night, is Iran's going to launch an attack on Israel and it's going to start the whole thing back up again. So that's my guess. I think the U.S. will eventually have to restart attacks, mainly in a defensive posture instead of an offensive posture. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say I think that we're probably going to wait the 60 days to attack, or we're probably not ever going to restart them ever. It's really hard to say right now because there's still about another 60 days to the MOU, but I have a feeling that the U.S. is going to be adamant on pushing this whole MOU through. According to the president right now, and not to make it sound like I'm making any jabs, but this is what he's saying, and knowing his personality and character, we know what's going to happen next. It's the greatest ceasefire ever made. It's the best thing ever. No other president was ever able to do this. Nobody in history could have done it. Not even George Washington or any of the founding fathers. I'm truly the greatest person alive. Israel and the U.S. and the military and everything wouldn't exist without me. So we know that based off of these statements of grandeur, and self-aggrandizing, that there is going to be no attempt to break this quick. They're going to try and push this through because breaking it quickly is basically going to be saying that the whole thing was a crock of crap, and the president can't take that to his own ego. So he'll be trying to push this through the whole 60 days if possible, and then at the end of those 60 days, we might see that they attack, or we might see that we start to enter the, we're in a ceasefire and the Iranians attacked us today, but the ceasefire is still in effect sort of a deal, which could also end up going on forever at that point, depending on, however the president wakes up on that given day. So I'll be entirely honest with y'all, folks. It's really hard to say, but I'd be in between the two largest voting groups.
Also, by the way, folks, if you want a little bit of a different perspective here, and this is going to be non-political right here. Also, by the way, just let Enforcer know, just for full disclosure, what I'm about to say in just a second here is simply trying to analyze the strategy of what the U.S. might be trying to plot out here and do. It's not about, this party's bad, this party's good, or et cetera, like nothing like that. But just to outline this, by the way, the midterm elections are coming up in November the 3rd of this year. So if they're planning on extending this for 60 days in these negotiations, they might be trying to wait till the midterms till they start this back up. But that's going to be a bit of a challenge, though, because 60 days, I don't think that gets them to November. I think that is like right before November, actually. I'm pretty sure. I can't do the math super quick in my head, but I'm pretty sure it falls short.
Mid-August.
So, yeah, mid-August then. Yeah, thank you for that. So they got to stall it beyond August somehow if they're trying to wait until after the midterms. So I don't think they're going to be able to do that under any circumstance. So I don't think the midterms are going to be, I don't think it's going to be a motivating factor here. I don't think. I know some people are going to say, well, that's what they're waiting for. There's just no way they can feasibly push it that far back. They simply can't. There's no way to stall that long. Iran will certainly do something before November that forces a response. So I don't think the midterms are coming into play here.
And also on top of that, if the Iranians blockade the strait and we just try and bury our head in the sand like we did for a while here, and just pretend like that's not happening to try and make it to the midterms, then the oil shortages hit the United States in probably mid-July at this point, or early July, which is what the last estimates were, which is just a couple of weeks, and then that's going to end up obliterating them in the midterms. Honestly, at this point, folks, I think no matter how this is going, the current group's going to get obliterated in the midterms. That's got the majority in the executive and the Congress. There's no way that they can make it to the midterms without this turning into an absolute dumpster fire at this point. Either we're going to have to restart the war against the Iranians, and knowing how badly they planned strategy, which we saw in the first part of the conflict, it's going to go poorly again, and we're probably going to run into shortages and be in a war, which is going to make the feeling very sour, and they'll probably end up losing them the midterms. Or they'll try and just wait it out and pretend like nothing's wrong, and then the shortages hit the United States, which economically is going to be devastating, and then that's going to destroy them in the midterms. I just don't really see any way they can make it to that point and have a positive outcome politically.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that the midterms are irrelevant to this situation. I know people want to like say, "Oh, well, they're trying to do this with the midterms, et cetera." It's over with. Like whatever has happened already, that's going to be a talking point by the time the midterms roll around. So I don't think the midterms are a benchmark to say something's going to happen before or after the midterms. I think that's kind of irrelevant at this point. Something's going to almost certainly happen before the midterms, and that's what I'm expecting personally.
Yeah, I mean, there is a third option. There is a third option, folks. I don't know if they're smart enough up there to listen to this one. I've only been saying it the whole year. Anthony knows exactly you know what I'm about to say, don't you? Like, about what they can do.
Oh, well, what is it?
They can go back to war and they can just bomb out the Strait of Hormuz and forcibly reopen it. They can just break the blockade.
Yeah.
That's the one thing they can't do.
Yeah, I mean, that would be better than just sitting back and doing nothing. At least they'd have an argument that they tried to finish the job, at least. That would probably be a stronger argument than, just, surrendering. That's just common sense. That's not even political. That's just common sense. What's better, finishing the job or at least trying to finish the job or just surrendering?
Let's say here hypothetically, folks, that we're speaking about this from a political perspective because the midterms are basically a burner on everyone's ass right now up in the White House. So they're trying to figure out how in the world do we curtail this disaster to where it is not devastating for the midterms. Because if the midterms go badly enough, there could be consequences to follow in the internal political situation in the United States. So let's sit in the political camp of the current people in charge and go, how do we game the whole situation out to where it doesn't end up being that bad? So we have the three options that we already talked about. And the first option is, let's just pretend like nothing's wrong, and if the Iranians blockade the strait again, we're not going to go to war with them, and we're just going to completely avoid conflict with them. An economic crisis is going to hit the United States in the next couple of weeks because of the fuel shortages. That is going to end up losing the midterms entirely. It's going to be such a bad economic fallout. No one's really going to be happy with that, no matter how much of a political diehard they are. The second option is that they can go back to war at some point before the midterms, but they don't end up clearing out the Strait of Hormuz. They just end up bombing the biggest things in Iran every day to get cool headlines. Like we bombed Tehran for the 9,000th time, or we blew up a big bridge, or like there was this big building and it got blown up. And that doesn't really do anything. So the strait would remain blockaded. We're now in a war that's grinding on endlessly and achieving nothing strategically. And also the shortages hit the United States again. And that would actually be the worst case scenario if you re-entered the war, did not break the blockade, and then the war kept dragging on as the economic impact hit. That would be the worst impact at all that you could ever see. That would end up in a complete wipeout in the midterms. The only option, the third option, is restart the war, but limit it entirely to the area within the near areas of the Hormuz. So 100 miles into Iran from the coast and in the Hormuz region, and clearing out the blockade. If they clear out the blockade, when the midterms come around, they can actually say, the war started off shaky, but we recovered, rebounded, cleared out the strait. Now Iran does not have control of it, and the oil is flowing freely. So we did run into a bit of an economic calamity, but it wasn't that bad, and we're already stabilizing the situation, and now Iran's on the run. And we can largely keep this war going as long as we want, and they'll have to eventually accept our demands, not the other way around. And as far as the three sorts of outcomes that you could get politically, the third option, which I just explained, is probably going to be the one that would give them the most success. Whether or not they're going to follow through with that on the strategic impact globally is a whole other question. The answer is definitely not. Like, we've already seen enough of their track record so far. They're not going to go with that one. They're probably going to go with option 1 or 2.
It'll be purely defensive from this point forward. I'm not expecting any offensive operations on Iran. It'll be purely defensive because I'm almost certain that Iran's going to attack Israel or attack U.S. bases before the U.S. ever starts an offensive operation, probably again. So that'll be what kicks it off. It'll be something defensive on the U.S. part.
I would agree. In the meantime, we also were able to hear that apparently the Secretary of State is going to be traveling to the Middle East to visit Kuwait, the UAE, and Bahrain, according to two sources. We're not sure if that's going to happen. They might cancel that last minute. And we also got to hear some interesting side stories from Iran and elsewhere in the region. As the Iranian Deputy Minister of Energy, Rajavi Mashadi, said,
bro, it's the night terrors meme. It's back. Somebody put it down there. Oh my God, it's our viewer too, right there. Put that down there. Y'all are doing me dirty with that right there. What was because this is the Lucid Dreams poster. Oh, y'all did me dirty.
The art of the knee. Bro.
Oh my god!
Oh my
Oh, they
god.
changed the words on it. I didn't even realize that until just now.
Oh my
Oh,
god. Man, that's something. But anyways, nuclear energy experts will return to Iran as soon as possible to continue the construction of phase 2 and 3 of the Bushehr nuclear power plant. So the Iranians are returning. Well, actually, the Russians are returning back to Iran to keep working on Bushehr. In the midst of this all, we did get to hear of some explosions near Idlib today in northern Syria, which is a hotbed of terrorist activity of every single group. And I gotta say, folks, we don't even know what happened up here. Could have been U.S. airstrikes, could have been Al Qaeda, could have been ISIS, it could have been anybody. We have no clue. There are so many terrorist groups that operate around Idlib that there is really no way for us to even know what happened up here or who did it yet. The story has to become a little bit more clear. There were reports of explosions. We do know that there was some sort of hostile actions that happened up there between some groups, but we just don't have any further details than that. On the flip side, however, in southern Afghanistan, in the Balochistan region, Afghanistan's defense ministry claims its air force conducted strikes against ISIS hideouts in Pakistan's Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa provinces. The ministry stated the sites were used to coordinate attacks on Afghanistan with external support. So according to Afghanistan today, they conducted strikes with their air forces, which they don't really have, against ISIS hideouts in Pakistan. I gotta say, folks, out of everything I ever expected today, the Taliban attacking ISIS, a terrorist group versus terrorist group, really isn't something I ever expected out of the region today. But that's
man,
news.
you know that everybody hates the ISIS. Like everybody hates ISIS. Like the Taliban hate them too. Like the Taliban say that the ISIS are too extreme, so they go attack them. That's how bad ISIS is.
Well, you know what's interesting is that ISIS has actually bombed Kabul a couple of times since the Taliban took control, and they've killed hundreds in most of those attacks. It's been pretty brutal. So yeah, that's something interesting that a lot of people actually don't know about ISIS, folks, is that ISIS is the black sheep of every group in the region. Every terrorist force fights them. Every single country in the region fights them. Literally anybody fights ISIS. They're so extreme and so radical and also so draconian that literally nobody, not even the most extreme terrorist groups outside of ISIS, can even align with them or work with them. So they end up being the enemy of quite literally everybody in the region, even the terrorist groups. So there is a possibility that up near Idlib, Al Qaeda was attacking ISIS, or ISIS was attacking Al Qaeda, or whatever's left of them up there near Idlib, but we don't really know for sure. But moving us on out of that news and inside of the whole of the Middle East, it's now time for us to move on out of the area and back on up into Europe. We were able to see that, speaking of the Middle East and kind of rounding out the whole story while getting back into Europe, there is still a significant number of B-1 Lancers, basically all of them that we have. Well, not all of them. There's actually a good bit more B-1 Lancers than we're seeing here, but a decent amount of the B-1 Lancers that we're seeing here are at RAF Mildenhall still and RAF Fairford, which is giving us a pretty good idea that the U.S. is still expecting that there may be a resumption of hostilities with the Islamic Republic of Iran. We can also see an additional 8 B-52 bombers based at RAF Fairford as well there in that satellite picture. Moving us on out of that and on into Ukraine, we've also been able to see that the Ukrainian armed forces are conducting another significant drone attack on Russia again right now as we're on air. We're expecting that these drones will most likely start to reach Moscow right after we get off of air due to most of their speeds being somewhat slow. And we've also been able to see that down in Crimea, things are still getting worse. In the area of Simferopol, heavy AA fire was heard throughout the whole of the city. That's right there.
That sounds real heavy.
I would say maybe 50 pounds. We also
what's up with the tropical bird noises in the background?
Oh, it's that toucan that came on vacation from Brazil, got stuck there. So now it just makes those noises like that.
Interesting.
We also got this clip. You see the AA fire in the distance. Look at it. Little tracers. Oh! One Mississippi. 2 Mississippi. 3 Mississippi. No explosion. Oh well.
Oh, cry me a river.
Oh, there it was, finally. It was pretty far away, actually.
You can hear the dogs of war barking away in the background. Oh, there's all the fire. You can kind of see it.
Oh yeah, there's some more of it. Some more tracer fire out there. That might be near to the, I forgot the name of the airfield nearby, but it looks like it might not be directly in the city. It might be around that airfield to the northwest of the city. Moving us on from that clip, and those clips, it's time for us to move on up and into the area of the far western region of the Crimean Peninsula. Here in Glebovsky, the Ukrainians hit a gas storage facility and blew it to pieces. Now it's time for us to get into the actual clip. Now they're going to show y'all where the strike happened. On that building, we see all of the different buildings that they want to blow up. And now here comes the drones to blow them to pieces.
Oh, look, a quick arrival. Look at that. Fresh arrivals. Ooh.
Same day delivery.
Ah, they did deliver. They delivered hellfire, looks like. Oh. Oh.
Oh man, they toasted
coming
it.
Down here and putting the hurt on the Russians. Oh.
You heard me?
Yeah, you heard me. Look at them. Putting the burn on them down here. They're going to need to take a dip in the Crimea River. Oh.
Sadly, they just don't have any water or fuel or food left or anything. It's like they're kind of running out of everything, sadly. I gotta say, watching this gas facility getting hit multiple times really reminds me, folks, that, the galaxy gas is in abundance here in America. Complete side note. But man.
You gotta come right when you're gonna talk to the boss, huh?
You heard me?
Man, honestly, Ukraine's the boss now. I tell you what, they're filling up the river with the tears of the Russians at this point. Crimea River, they got the river's flowing good.
They also continue to hit Russian logistics down here in Crimea. MTLBs, the gas facilities, what have you, everything. I won't show you this whole clip here. It's basically a repeat of most of the attacks we've seen over the past few days, but I will show you what they're trying to do to deal with it. In Crimea, there's a few fuel trucks that have somehow been able to make it through. These trucks are lucky, but they're very few and far in between, and are, of course, under the ever-present threat of a Ukrainian attack blowing up the truck and also the drivers. The Russians are now deploying mobile fire groups in the back of Kamaz trucks, which have now been outfitted with machine guns on swivels to be able to try and deal with the incoming drone attacks. And they're also moving these fuel trucks in convoys, not only in Crimea, but on the M14 highway. Allow me
that's going to work swell, man. That's going to work super swell because, that you had to be basically a sharpshooter to hit the thing moving around with a stationary machine gun like that. And we all know that the Russian forces are all sharpshooters with their 2 weeks at maximum of training. So this will work about as good as a can of soup trying to take the drone down. This will suck.
A can of soup, you can really put some power into that. But here's the actual trucks on the highway. There's the head of the convoy and the fuel trucks following them. This is Russia's attempt to try and get a little bit of fuel into Crimea. This is a giant road bomb driving down the highway, man. Three of them in one group.
It's like, how the hell is that one truck with a machine gun on supposed to defend 3 separate fuel trucks? Like, even if they can defend the one at the front, which I really doubt they probably even defend one of them, it's like the other 2 are goners.
Also, what about that thing's firing arc? It can only fire behind the truck, so they're just firing into the windshields of the trucks behind them at that point, trying to hit the drone. It's like, what use is this really?
Oh, yeah. You know what this is? Like, let's be honest. This is like the equivalent of look busy when you're at work. Like, the Russian generals were being told by Putin, fix the problem and get it fixed quick. And the generals were like, what the hell do we do? What do we do? Just send out a truck with a machine gun on it so that way we can say we did something. Because this is obviously not going to work, but at least the generals can report back to Putin and say, look, we did something. Don't send us to the gulag.
I honestly, man, like, this seems to me to be the equivalent of the old, I don't know if you ever seen them before, but the Vietnam era war wagons. Like, have you ever heard of that before?
I think so, yeah.
Like, they're like the M35, like 2.5 ton and 5 ton trucks that they would equip with like tons of machine guns in the truck bed, and they would just have a whole bunch of guys manning that for ambushes and whatnot. It's basically kind of like the same thing, but it's done even worse, because if you look at how these things are set up, the firing arc on that is only 180 degrees to the left and the right of the rear of the truck, but because of the canvas on the front of it, there's no protection. Well, there's really no firing arc there. Like, there's no way to really get the gun on an incoming drone at a low altitude, which they are, and so it's very limited in effect. On the other hand, if you look at a Vietnam war wagon, like, this thing is like optimized for this kind of a job. It has a 360-degree firing arc because it's in the complete wide open. That's actually an M113 that they just strapped down to the back of the bed, and that's actually pretty smart. But it has a 360-degree firing arc and a couple of machine guns to boot with a couple of gunners. So you have kind of a more optimal like air defense setup with this thing with a war wagon than you do with what the Russians have even come up with. Man, they can't even do a war wagon good. This thing's been around for like 50 years. They can't even figure that one out.
And they weren't even shooting down drones in Nam.
Man, they was chopping down trees. They called these guys logging men or lumberjacks the way they was cutting down them forests. I tell you, these things, by the way, just to give you a little bit of background because some of y'all might find this historically neat. But these were actually used on the QL-19 highway from the coastline here at Quy Nhon, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, along the highway to the city of Pleiku, which was a major point of U.S. military operations during the war in Vietnam. So that's why these were made, is because they kept getting ambushed, these 10-mile-long convoys along the highway to Pleiku, and so they came up with an idea of building these war wagons to put a couple of them in the front of the convoy, the rear of the convoy, and the middle of the convoy, so that way if the Viet Cong or the NVA or anyone else tried to ambush the convoy, the war wagons would chop them down, or at least suppress them enough that they'd retreat, cutting down on the supply losses and the personnel losses being seen on the QL-19 highway. So a little interesting piece of Vietnam War era history. But moving us on out of that and on into the rest of the news that we have from in Ukraine today, we also get to see that Donetsk also came under attack, and the Shahed launchers at the Donetsk International Airport were targeted and destroyed today by the armed forces of Ukraine once more. Look at that airfield, laden with drone launchers, loads of them.
This is what they call a target-rich environment right here. Very rich.
Man, rich. The Ukrainians about to make him broke. Run them pockets. Oh, actually, well, that was the end of the clip.
Oh, no, we didn't get to see nothing. They didn't run any pockets.
Well, I mean, I declare, but we also got to see this clip. That's definitely a drone. Moving us on out of those clips, it's now time for us folks to move on into the front lines themselves. And we've got some news to tell you. Oh boy, oh buddy. Buhanka was destroyed today by the 421st Battalion. And I wish I could play all the music, but it is extremely copyrighted. Observe. I cannot play any more of that. That's literally all y'all get. But they made a whole meme out of it. You see, the Buhanka's coming. They got an AI version of it. The Russians enjoying the ride.
Oh man, I can hear that music right behind it right now. I can hear it.
Oh yeah. And they got it.
Oh damn.
Oh man, that was a good one. They did really good with the editing on that one. That was a pretty funny one. We also got to see the Ukrainians also going out of their way to destroy the Russians' FPV ambush drones in these clips, also in the same front. Dang, man, that thing dived in like dived in with like the elbow, basically.
It dove.
Man, it's peaceful like a bull, bled.
Man, peaceful like a dove.
man, them does, man. Like, oh man, there goes the basement dwellers. See.
Oh, that's not a good spot to go. That's not good. Have they not heard of have they not ever heard if unfortunately if your dog's outside when it's lightning and scared of lightning, it always goes around the trailer. Bad spot. It's like, have the Russians never heard of that? It's like, don't go into the trailer.
Man, they get electrocuted, but it ain't by lightning. Man, but anyways, moving on into our location unknowns, we also get to see this Russian position getting hit by an airstrike. And who said the Ukrainians didn't have an air force?
Oh wow, look at that. They just ground forced them too. Look, little Air Force and ground force all in one.
I gotta say, man, we're really doing good, like, with the laughs tonight. We need to keep this up. Like we really need to. But yes, I heard that we've also been able to see the Russian casualty report for the past 24 hours. And holy moly!
Bobcats every day, like Mestiza says. Bobcats every day. I'm starting to take this for granted. I'm becoming a glutton with Bobcats at this point, a pure glutton. But tell us more.
Bobcats daily. 3 square Bobcats a day. I mean, like, you can't get better than that. Literally 3 square Bobcats. It's just unreal. People have been calling me up from all around going, Sir, let's make another foreign policy crisis. Like, we love it. But moving on from that, Miss D Secure the Records has stated that 441 supply trucks and fuel trucks is the 5th highest loss. 4 ground robotic complexes were also destroyed, which wasn't shown. And troop losses is over 1,300 a day consistently, so 1 week to 1.4 million. And oh, buddy, I can't wait for that. And over the past 24 hours, we have been able to see that 1,370 Russian soldiers have been wounded and killed, along with 4 APCs, 441 supply trucks, 2 main battle tanks, 58 artillery pieces, 1,968 drones, 4 MLRSs, 4 cruise missiles, 1 anti-aircraft warfare system, and 3 Bobcat skid steers. All in all, a very good thing to see, and once again showing that the Ukrainians are putting in that work. Moving us on into where they were clocking in that work, it's time to get to Shabakino, as the Ukrainians were showing us in the 17th Brigade what work really looks like in those morning hours. The drones just sifting through the position and finding the most opportune spot to hit, and then they hit it.
You'd think they'd hear it, kind of like, scurrying around the camp. But, we did see yesterday a Russian straight up open the door for a drone after he heard it outside.
And he said, oh man, death is outside. Let me welcome it on in. Come on in. Like, it's like, you idiot. It's like you just got everyone killed.
This is definitely a Russian position. It's like trash galore at this position.
Dang, that was a shock. Oh my God, a second one. Bro, their shockwaves were ripping through the whole camp.
I know they have a bit of a Smokey Bear situation on their hands. It looks like a little forest fire breaking out.
So when the Russians come out of this position, are they smoked Russians?
I guess. I guess.
Is that like smoked pork? Or smoked orc?
Yeah, orc.
I think it is. We also got to see Ukrainian drones ambushing some Russians in the Vovchansk area here. Oh, and there they go running. Look at them. How silly. They didn't outrun it either. Oh, damn. That thing like caught on fire like kindling. I also had the side of that metal shack, and this one as well. Damn! Okay, well, these things have got some incendiary force to them. Didn't know that. That's news. I also see them hitting a comms tower, and... oh, what... a vehicle of some sort. Couldn't really tell y'all what kind, sadly. And they just flew in here and hit a wheelbarrow. That was a strategic wheelbarrow, mind you all.
The Russians, they have a green thumb. They garden when they have free time, of course, Probably because they can't get any food from the logistics trucks because they got blown up before they got there.
Honestly. Oh, man. I tell you, these clips these days are crazy stuff. Moving us on past the northern front. Unfortunately, you didn't get any video or picture evidence there. And on down towards the area of Chasiv Yar and Konstantinivka, we did get to see this one Ukrainian soldier here take care of 2 Russian soldiers with one simple trick. We see the Russians here all gathered up in the building facing down this one Ukrainian soldier who's currently being very sneaky. We can also see that these 2 Russians have decided to hide in this wide open hole in the basement. This was a bad idea. The Ukrainian lobbed a grenade in there and took out both of them with one go. The 3rd guy ended up running away wounded. And this was all done by one Ukrainian soldier. These 3 Russians had the attacker's advantage, a 3-to-1 ratio. Yet, due to their own stupidity and lack of tactics, and also the fact that they didn't stay spread out and in open areas where they could maneuver, they were overwhelmed by a smaller foe. And thus, the story continues. The Russians continue to get schwacked by quite literally just one dude out there against 3. Moving us on from that clip, we also were able to see that down on the rest of the Konstantinivka front, things were remaining busy. The 2nd Marine Battalion was making sure to really give the Russians the whole 9 yards, cooking up their position. And a couple of others. Many people do understand that the Russians, due to their lack of funding and lack of equipment, aren't able to have centralized heating within most of the buildings that they reside in and hide in during the daylight hours. So for that reason, the Ukrainians decide to burn the buildings down that they're in to give them a little bit of warmth in their final hours. It's a very humane thing.
The Russians went from drinking like a fiend on the bottle and being quite fond of the drink to hotboxing the positions on the front.
It's like a sauna in there. It's a real luxury, a spa, really. We also got to see in Pokrovsk the shelling in the city by the 7th Army Corps was also a little bit pressing for the Russians today. Let's take a little look at that. Ah, there's the city. And there we go. A couple of strikes. It's not like bowling, though. A little bit different. And the scoring's also done a little bit differently as well, unfortunately. It's not as straightforward. The 7th Corps is really putting together a nice infographic here on the side. Don't know what it says, sadly. I don't read Ukrainian that good.
It says we're winning, we hit the building, and it's all over with for the Russians. Go on home, take it easy, and pack it up.
Oh, man, they blew away the whole middle of the apartment building.
Man, they're pulling in Israel.
Man, luckily there's no civilians in that building.
Thank God.
That's kind of the difference. But moving us on from that, we also were able to see Russian forces getting hit a little bit further south by the 36th Marine Brigade. Let's take a little look at this. This intro. Wait a minute. This is a duplicate. Getting rid of that. Moving on down to Oleski, we also were able to see that the 34th Marine Brigade was also doing some work against the Russians down here. And the town of Oleski, we can see that that's Russian shit, as that little emoji shows right there. Now there's 2 Russian shits. A 3rd. Oh, and I have 4th even, maybe. Or those are the same 2 guys, just from a different angle. And they got him in the greenhouse. Goodness gracious. They got him in the greenhouse. Oh, dang, they're like really hitting that greenhouse. They ain't letting them go. Meanwhile, man, that cat's up there, man, looking a little feral. Up there in the top left.
Yeah, really. That's almost like a bobcat. Look at this ghoul on down here. Look at that little freak.
Look at that damn that freak.
I couldn't think of what that was. I was like, oh, let's insult the hell out of him. They'll fix it.
Well, I mean, it works, I suppose. Definitely not out of place. But that was one hell of a freak. He was on fire too. I mean, you got to be kind of a freak to be on fire. But outside of that, folks, it is time for us to get on into the rest of our segments for the show, because that was actually the last piece of news that we had for the day. And I've got to say, folks, a big thanks to everyone who's been watching so far tonight. We still have a lot of questions to go. This is the segment where we get to talk to each and every single one of y'all. It's the question segment. But I do have to thank all 100,000 people who have watched in the first 2 hours of the show, and the peak viewership here, that was 17.2 thousand people. I've got to thank each and every single one of y'all who has watched so far tonight. We're absolutely honored and greatly appreciative to know that so many of y'all consider this channel to be your primary source of news and continue to come here and watch this channel each and every single day. I hope that y'all will continue to stay around, because the question segment is always an interesting time. We usually have some very interesting questions and rabbit holes to get into and whatnot, and I cannot wait to get into each and every single one of them. And so, without further ado, Matthew, what do we got?
Also, by the way, before we move into our questions, our super chats, our live chats, etc., and thank all the folks that support the channel tonight, and also get some live chats from the chatters, I have something else I want to show y'all, by the way, that Miss Disa just brought up right now, and it's something very cool, by the way, that I think y'all should probably know about, because the United States loves to go around saying, what has Ukraine ever done for us? Is Ukraine ever going to pay us back for all the money that we just willy-nilly gave away to the Ukrainians to defend themselves against the dictatorship? What are they doing for us? Because, of course, everything's transactional. It's not just about, helping a country out that's trying to defend itself in a democracy. It's about getting something out of it, because that's the way we are as Americans. We want something out of it. Well, Ukraine is giving us something out of it. Have you heard of this, by the way, Enforcer? It's called Trophy Lab. It's something that Ukraine just launched about 18 hours ago.
I actually did hear about that. I didn't include it in the news. I thought no one would care. But that's that, also, I don't mean that to put the story down. I just thought that people would be like, because the implications behind it are big, but it doesn't really seem direct. But they actually created a library of all of the Russian weapon systems that they've captured and dissected for every single one of their allies to get direct access to. So it's basically a library of all of the Russians' military capabilities in full form.
Yeah, it's literally an online portal where the Ukrainians share every single dissection of every weapon. In fact, here's the post about it right here. You can show them the video. This is what Ukraine put out, by the way. And Trophy Lab is now live. So the United States can simply log into Trophy Lab. They can see dimensions, stats, and all the information they need to reverse engineer or develop defenses against all of Russia's weapons that Ukraine has ever captured. So I would say this is better than even saying thank you, as the Vice President of the United States wanted Zelensky to say a long time ago. I would say this is better than that, I would say. Hey, honestly, also, by the way, cool video for it, by the way. They're hyping that up pretty strong, but that's actually a really cool idea. I like that a lot. You know, it's got to piss the Russians off quite a bit.
Yeah, I bet you it does. And also, something else that's interesting is that it looks like in this infographic, they're actually showing that they break down each part and what country of origin it came from.
Yeah, it does actually. And also, I'm sure there's some Chinese weapons in there somewhere because China's shipping them stuff, and also North Korean weapons too. So I'm sure all that stuff's in there.
And I'm wondering, like, I'm trying to see here if there's anything that's classified yet that I don't know, or I'm like, oh, look at that, like, it's like a War Thunder League. It's like, oh my god, I'm not seeing anything yet, at least that we wouldn't know over here. Most of the stuff right here is actually publicly available information they're showing here, but this might just be the public example. Let's see. Um, it doesn't look like anything on here yet is, say, like, confidential or like it wasn't known yet. It looks like all the stuff is publicly accessible information they're showing in this video, but I bet you they have a lot more greater detail that they go into for the actual people who can log into the system and take a look around it. So
Oh
that's
yeah,
really cool.
100%. And also there's an advantage to keeping it secret, like exactly what Ukraine knows about Russian weapons, because if Russia gets the idea that Ukraine is like, dissected one of their weapons, they might try to change it or try to modify it in some way. So that way the Ukrainians don't know what's up with the new one. They might try to do that. So I'm sure there's a lot that we're not seeing publicly that's inside that trophy lab system.
Well, I mean, kind of to a point, but if a weapon that's been captured, and most tanks have been captured intact at some point, like the T90M and the T90A, and I believe the T72B3 and the T80 BVM, generally it would be expected at that point, at least by the Russians, that every single part of it had been taken apart and combed through. And also on top of this, it's not like Russia could change anything. It's not like they're building them new. It's also like they don't have the money to replace anything on them either. So how they are is how they come, I think, at this point. But that may be a good point, especially on some of the systems.
Yeah, I would say between a trophy lab, setting that up, that's a nice thing to set up for the United States to access to check out Russian weapons. Also, the drone partnership that Ukraine's going to be undertaking with the United States to develop FPV technology to fight the next war. I would say Ukraine might be one of our most influential partners that we have at the moment between everything. I would say they certainly are.
I would agree, honestly. I mean, really a great ally to have. An amazing thing, folks. Just throwing a little bit of money their way, it helps us out so greatly. I'd say that.
Imagine Imagine how much the U.S. would have had to pay a spy to get that information, to bribe a Russian officer to get that kind of information. Who knows how much the Russian officer would have wanted. When the CIA sends out an agent, they'll be like, oh, go recruit somebody, go get some access to some information or something like that. They usually offer, if they can get a Russian, to flip, they'll offer them some money in exchange for that information. They'll make them rich, in other words, to give over some secrets. But it looks like Ukraine's doing it for free.
Man, they did it for free. How kind of them, really. How kind of them. We got so much out of Ukraine, folks. We gave them $90 billion of secondhand equipment we were going to destroy anyways. And in return, we got all of Russia's military secrets that they were able to get. It's way better than giving Iran like 660 billion and getting nothing out of it, and in fact losing more than we had at the start. Honestly, that's way better of a deal to me. Real art of the deal, art of the meal kind of stuff going on right there. Real square one. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to get on into the question segment. So Matthew, what do we got?
All right, moving right back into our super chat segment here. Let's thank the donors of the night that's keeping the channel running. And so far, we've had a $50 support as well during our last question segment from none other than Blind Man. And thank you very much, Blind Man, for that $50 support right there. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And Blind Man said, hello, enforcers in LSA, and says the world is full of what ifs, could be's, and who thunk it. I traced my family line to feudal Europe. And if the Prussians failed at uniting the German states, I'd be 258th in line for the German throne. Oh well, but to live chat on me.
Thank you so much for the support, Blind Man. And that's very interesting. Interestingly enough, our family history actually has some people who aren't really extremely notable in them, but if history had gone differently, we might be in a different place. Like, for example, are the first people in our family's actual name, like the name that we carry, were actually the first person in that family was actually a king of northern Wales. And so, if Wales had never been conquered under the English, we might actually be Welsh royalty. Or we might actually have some sort of estate inside of Devon, which is also another part of the family. It's really interesting looking at that stuff, but all that stuff is literally 1,000 years ago. That's all pre-Norman conquest of England in the Battle of Hastings, and just like immediate post-aftermath of the Battle of Hastings sort of a deal. So it's literally 1,000 years old at this point, literally. But it's still really cool to look at that and be like, wow, that's really neat. That's where the family comes from. And then there's some more of them that come from Scotland and also, I believe, Ireland as well, but the Irish parts are very small. But it's a really cool thing, looking at family history and lineage, especially for a lot of people here in the United States of America, because it kind of lets them know where they come from. And they're always going to find out that they never came from the United States of America. but a big thanks to you so much. Let's give her the support and help with this channel to keep it running. And I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And I'd have to say, it's very unfortunate to hear that you're not 258th in line for the German throne, or the Prussian throne, that would be. But, at least, it's not all bad. We still got this channel. That's one thing that came out of the whole, way that history is right now. I would say that's not too bad. But with that, we will make sure to get a live chat in your honor. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so the live chat question is going to go to none other than Philip Southern, who said, do you and Andrew think the Ukrainians might be planning to flank the Russians on the north and open a road towards Moscow?
No, no. That would be an existential threat to the state. That's nuclear worthy. Like that, all they would be doing is trying to offset or throw off Russian offensive plans in northern Ukraine. That would probably be the actual intention. Because outside of that, I don't see them doing anything grander than that. They don't really have the manpower or the resources to be able to throw at the situation to really do that. And also, the Russians will send their own forces into that area to try and defend against the Ukrainian offensive, meaning that it would be wise, and the Ukrainians are quite wise with their command, to develop their offensive plans with a limited scope. And so I don't think they'll be opening up any attack paths to Moscow, per se, at least in my opinion. But a big thanks to you for sponsoring that live chat right there, Blind Man, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Wubba Actual. And thank you, Wubba, as well, for the $25 super chat. And we also appreciate that as well. And Wubba said, let's light this candle.
I'm more of turning on the light switch kind of a guy. Very easy, really. I'm just kidding. I know what you mean. I know it's a figure of speech. And I gotta say, why not? Why not? The Ukrainians seem to be apt to light it at this point. I think they probably have measured out the situation well enough to know what they're getting into and what could happen. So we'll see. I mean, they might light the candle, or the Belarusians might back off. Either way, I think the Ukrainians have a pretty good idea that it's going to end up beneficial to them no matter how it turns out. So I hope that does address that the best I can. And a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on the next one.
Also, a big shout out to none other than Bobo Vasquez, who put in a $20 support and also is helping to keep the channel running. And a huge shout out to you, Bobo, for being a longtime channel legend and being here for such a long time throughout all the days of all the crazy stuff happening, and all of us living through such crazy times over the last 4+ years. Really quite wild. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, humongous thanks to you for support, Bobo Vasquez. You've been around with us for years, I say. And folks like you have been supporting this channel for years as well. And we got to thank y'all greatly for enjoying the channel and supporting it, because y'all make it possible. As we always say, there's no magic money behind the scenes that keeps this show on air, as much as the people up at Langley would like y'all to think. It is actually the viewers themselves that keep this homegrown American propaganda operation running and on air. And we greatly thank you, folks, for making sure to support this channel and help it to keep on running, so we can continue to support American and Western interests around the globe. And so a big thanks to you so much once again, Bobo. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on the next one.
And our next one is going to go to none other than Rebecca Bruce. And thank you, Rebecca, for the $20 support. And Rebecca said, thank you so much for all you do, and LSA.
And I thank you so much, Rebecca Bruce, for enjoying everything we do. We try our best, and I hope that tonight it was once again another good night of coverage. We try our best to make sure to get to the news first, and to make sure to cover all of the developments the best we can, and to provide, hopefully, the best analysis that y'all have heard on where things could go. And I thank you so much for appreciating that and supporting it, so that way we can keep this thing rolling and keep this thing a reality. And so, long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never truly die. And with that, we're on the next one.
And a big shout to Booth Hazard, who put in a 20. And thank you, good sir, as well for that support. He said, howdy there. I've been watching for a few months and love what y'all do. And thank you, by the way. He said, have you ever thought about having a special guest or a subject matter expert for the stream or short form videos? And long live the LSA. And we, like way back in the day, like the people that have been here for quite some time will remember that we have experimented with guests. There's a handful of them that we still talk to, and the rest of them we don't, because after they left the channel, then their true colors came out. And they were simply coming on the channel to try to basically siphon off our subscribers to a certain degree. So we wised up. We made some mistakes at the beginning. Now, that does not mean we're completely opposed to bringing in a special guest on. If the special guest is somebody that people really want to hear from, and they're not just like somebody trying to come on here and siphon subscribers, we might be open to it. But the catch is they couldn't come onto the stream, though, because it doesn't fit into the format. So maybe one day, but Enforcer, what say you?
Maybe one day, like Matthew's saying, because really the live stream format just doesn't really support guests. And we tried our best to make that work back in the day, and it just didn't really work all too well. And then also on top of that, a decent amount of the people that we brought on back then were quite venomous. Have no idea why. And honestly, folks, like that really started off our whole endeavor into YouTube in a very bitter way, which honestly I've had to kind of like learn myself out of over the years, because we started off in the Ukraine war category solely. And one thing I will have to say, and this isn't about everybody in the Ukraine war category, but this is about like at least half or most of the people we dealt with that specialize in that category. They were very two-faced, angry, bitter people. Like they would end up acting nice to you at the start, both of us, to get on the show, and then we bring them on as a guest, and then they'd absolutely dog on us after they got off the show, like immediately, literally the next day afterwards. And we had done absolutely nothing to them. Like, you know, when we were off air with them, when y'all weren't able to hear the microphones, we would be talking to them. Oh, hey, how are you doing? It's nice to finally meet you. You know, really big fan of your show. Really enjoy it. And we would, you know, say nice stuff to them, get them on air. We would treat them well. I mean, y'all can see the recorded segment on air, and then they get off, and then the next day they'd be like, yeah, I hate their show. I think they're stupid. And it's like, what the hell? It's like, you know, we had no ill will towards you. It's like, why in the world are you going around making beef? So that kind of started us off in a bad way on YouTube, because then I generally assumed at the start that basically every YouTuber was kind of like an asshole, and I started to think, don't ever meet your heroes. So we got heavily into never having guests for that reason. But then over the years, we've ended up having a lot of YouTube channels reach out to us and say incredibly kind things, and you know, we've gotten along with all of them quite well. I mean, there's probably a couple of them watching right now, like Dennis Davidoff, Sivdiv, and others that we've gotten
Preston
known.
Stewart.
Yeah, Preston Stewart, all of those amazing folks, and they're great people. I mean, like, they're great people. They run great shows. We, you know, greatly appreciate what they do. I watch some of their videos from time to time, and I feel like we kind of just started off on the bad foot, and honestly, like, a group of bad eggs like that we tried to like get on at the beginning. But really, there's a lot of great YouTubers out there. It's just that sadly, even knowing that now and having learned that over the years from where it started to where we are now, there really just isn't a way to fit in any of the good folks that we know that also make great videos and whatnot themselves into the format of the live stream. So we might be able to one day do it on a video. Like if we make specialized documentary videos, we might be able to fit in a couple of them, but we don't know if we even have the time to be able to do those.
You know, the people I'm really interested, if we were to have guests on, the people I'd be wanting to bring on are people that are like actively like, you know, pioneering like the new drone technology here in the United States. Like Palmer Luckey would be pretty cool to have on, the
Yeah, he'd be
Anduril
cool.
CEO. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. I don't know if he would come on the show because obviously he's a very busy person. But Zelensky, we've always wanted to have Zelensky on, but the odds of getting Zelensky on the show is not very high because he's obviously fighting a war right now, and he prioritizes certain interviews with like the bigger places for the first ones. But There's people I would like to have on. I wouldn't even mind having, like, for example, the Secretary of State on, for example. Like, even though I'm not very happy with the way things are going, at least to be able to ask questions and also, ask some of the tough questions, like, that would be pretty decent. Obviously, we wouldn't set up to be like a political ambush. We wouldn't do something like that. But just to get like fair questions, if they would even answer it, that would be interesting. But it would have to be worthwhile, though. I'm just like, all due respect to all the other YouTubers, by the way. I'm a big fan of like Denny's Davidoff, also Preston Stewart, etc. But we each have our own unique like pool that brings in audiences, and we all have that unique like little spark going on. So we've all figured that out. But I'm really interested in hearing from the people that are actually like in the industries and stuff like that.
It would be cool though to eventually do a collab with some of the other YouTubers that we do know, like for videos and whatnot, where maybe we guest star in one of their videos or they guest star in ours. That would be pretty neat. But sadly, I really just be entirely honest with y'all, just knowing like the business end of things, it's very hard to integrate a guest into a live stream, if not impossible, because the format works in a certain way where I yap nonstop, and that's very hard to get a guest on because I like have to stop kind of like the continuous flow. And a lot of people would think that I'm yapping here endlessly just because I yap like that. Honestly, folks, when I'm off air, I hardly talk, if at all, anymore. I'm very quiet when I'm off air because this takes a lot to do mentally, and it is a deliberate design. Dead space on air is something that can kill a show, and if you know anything about show business at large, not that this is reality TV or television or anything, but show business in large, the running rule is that dead space is bad space. Dead space is going to kill a show. So you have to keep something going on, you have to keep talking, you have to keep doing something, because otherwise the show is going to drop dead. And so bringing on a guest requires you to know them in great detail, really, or do some pre-screening, which usually requires a team to be able to figure out if they're going to have any chemistry with the host to where there isn't going to be any dead space like that, or the chemistry with the host and the co-host, the host and the co-host, so that way there isn't any dead space in those sorts of situations. And that's very hard to pull off because we don't have anyone and really any time ourselves to do any pre-vetting and pre-screening of folks to figure out if there's going to be good enough chemistry to bring them on air and have a really good conversation and make it very engaging and very interesting with very little dead air. And so that's kind of also the issue as well. And that's what we ran into back in the day, is that a lot of people can make great videos, and some of them would seem somewhat interesting, although a lot of these people like that we brought on back in the day, save for very few or very venomous people, they had absolutely no chemistry with us. And it became very clear on air that they didn't, because there would be significant amounts of dead air where we would say something to them that was supposed to be a joke and they wouldn't even react like it was a joke, or they'd say something and it came off weird and then we didn't really know how to react to it. And that's a very difficult thing to deal with on the show running side of things, which is like specifically as far as the live show goes here, that's my wheelhouse, and I'm the one who notices that the most. I'm like, damn, this is going rough. Like, this is a very hard thing to get through. It feels like pulling teeth. So that's also kind of a consideration as well, is that it just doesn't really work with the format to where we can keep the lack of dead space going like we do normally, when it's basically just me trying to yap nonstop to keep the dead space from happening. So I hope that does address that the best we can. We'll see someday. Like, video is definitely possible. Like, we could eventually do that with a video, but live stream, sadly, just largely out of the picture. But a huge thanks to you once again, and with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 20 from My Truck and Travels, and thank you, My Truck and Travels, as well, for that $20 support. And he said, "Good evening, enforcers. It looks like it's been a hell of a day, and I hope the Iranian-US deal falls apart, and this weekend has been Ukraine's revenge. And Salt Lake City to Miami, Florida, and take one for the chat, my friends, and LLT LSA."
Salt Lake to Miami?
Yeah, honestly, I would hope the Iran deal falls apart too. Like, yeah, I know it's a strange thing to say because they're calling it a peace deal, but that's the shittiest deal that's ever existed. It's like, if that fell apart, you wouldn't see a tear being shed on my side if it fell apart. I'd be like, thank God they got to finish the job. So maybe it will. It seems like it already has, really, to be honest.
I would agree. It seems like it's in the process of falling apart, and I think it is going to completely fall apart soon. And I would have to just hope and pray that it does, and that they take the proper action of returning to the war and focusing on the Hormuz, because that's their only hope in hell at this point. Literally the only one. And so, outside of that, though, I would have to say Salt Lake City to Miami. Oh my God. That is long. Like, man, it was 2,000 miles just to get to Birmingham. Driving all the way down to Miami, that's like That's like 2,600 miles or something of driving. That is a long way to go, my trucking travels. I hope that you are going to stay awake and aware on that sort of a drive. Not that you're going to be up the whole way nonstop, but that is one hell of a length of a drive. You're going to literally see the whole country that way. And I hope that you get to enjoy seeing it. At least, not having to look at the road all day, every day. I know in the Penske I had to when we were moving out here to Salt Lake. So a big thanks to you for your support and helping this channel to keep it running. And long live the Lee Spring Army. And a huge thanks to you once again for enjoying this channel and supporting it and helping us to keep this thing running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
Also, by the way, you saw my joke I put in the chat, by the way. Do you see that?
I saw it and I was like, man, I'm not even gonna react to that. I saw everyone going, yeah! I was like, there we go.
I was trying to get a rise out of people. I'm seeing some people are freaking out. I'm joking, by the way. If you see that message I put in the chat, I'm like joking 100%. We don't have loonies on here. But jumping into our next one here, this one goes to Thomas Schott. And thank you very much, Thomas, for that $20 support. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And Thomas said, I saw your short video in my feed 2 months ago. I've been watching ever since. I like the way you report breaking news before the main media decides to show it, and in the process, a Patreon site chose Honorary Enforcer as my name. And I saw you on there earlier, by the way. I saw Honorary Enforcer. I was like, who is that? I'm like, somebody called themselves Honorary Enforcer and joined the Patreon. Well, we're glad to have you, though. And also, that is a point that people bring up all the time. We are, like, typically about 48 hours at least in reporting breaking stories before the mainstream media does it. Because mainly, we focus on actual news and not the politics. So that's why we're so able to get quick to it. And also, like, it seems like mainstream media's got so much bureaucracy that goes into their news streams and things like that. It takes too long to get it out. So by the time they report it, it's like way too late. But Enforcer, what say you?
Honestly, that is the truth of it. Mainstream news is exceedingly slow. It's excruciatingly slow with how they are. Honestly, one thing that I'll have to say as well is, and this isn't directed at anybody at all, but there are a couple of YouTube channels out there that are exceedingly slow as well. And it's really interesting because some people will come in and go, "Oh, Enforcer, have you heard about ABC and thing that happened that this YouTuber said?" And it's like, dude, we covered that like 36 hours ago. It's like that's like way past. Like we had a couple of people in the intro tonight saying that some dude out there made a YouTube video talking about the refinery getting hit in Moscow. It's like we covered that literally yesterday. It's like, we covered that even the day before that. I mean, that happened literally like 36 hours before this show, 48 hours actually before this show. And it's really interesting with how we're able to get to it with a good deal and a good bit of speed. And what's even crazier is that we usually are able to get details that haven't come out yet, usually from just common sense deductions, which I always get a kick out of because people either love the common sense deductions and the analysis that we give, or they act like we're absolute idiots. One thing I will say, though, is that 90% of the time, the analysis ends up being correct. So, it's like whether people are calling us idiots or not, we're right. I mean, like, it's tough. It's a tough call to call us an idiot. It's like, we are still right, though. Because one thing I'll tell y'all is on big ticket issues, like with going to war with Iran, said for months before the war, we really need to deal with the Hormuz first. If we don't, it's going to be a disaster. They went to war and didn't deal with it. Then I said during the war, we've made a major mistake. This is going to go badly because they've been able to pull out the one ultimate card they have on us. They're going to screw us over. And then people told me that I was full of shit then and I didn't know what I was talking about. And then the president came out just 2 days ago and said they took the Strait of Hormuz and mined it and blockaded it and there was really nothing we could do. It was hopeless at that point, so we surrendered. It's like, wow, it's like, you got that dead on the nail.
Well, you gotta imagine, most people don't have the balls to make predictions like that. Like, we make some pretty ballsy predictions on here, which can backfire, and we try to hedge them. Like, I will say that we try to hedge our predictions a lot of the time, because we don't want to, like, make concrete statements, and something turns out to be the opposite, and then everybody's like, oh, you idiots, like, you're always getting stuff wrong. So we try to, like, add some hedging to it, so that way it's not, just blind, guesses all the time, stuff like that. But we make some pretty ballsy predictions. I'll say our prediction success rate has gotten pretty good over the years. Like, there's rarely a time where somebody can come in here and say, you guys said something about a week ago that turned out to be completely false. That is very rare that ever happens on the channel in recent years.
I would say actually our reliability decreases the more minutia we have to get into, like, for example, like a weapon system. Like I could say, and someone in the fan Discord actually told me I was wrong, and I was wrong, that the Apache longbow radar actually does not have an air-to-air search capability. Turns out I was actually wrong. Like, a viewer actually told me that, and I went and looked into their research and their proof. They were right. Like, whenever we get into heavy minutia like that, where we have to start talking about technical abilities of weapon systems, I would say that the irreliability kind of starts to show up there, especially on my end, because, you know, I'm having to talk about literally everything: electronic warfare systems, aircraft, helicopters, tanks, rifles, and everything else, and have to know enough about them to speak in them in great detail like I'm trying to sell them, which I will admit I get things wrong from time to time on that a lot more than others. But on the broader strokes of grander strategy and foreign policy, I would say that our prediction rate is pretty success rate is pretty high, because we will say stuff like I did. Like, if we go to war with Iran, this is the one battlefield we have to focus on the most. We will live and die in the Hormuz. And people wanted to say that I was full of shit and didn't know what I was talking about, and the president knew way more than me, and we're just some kids that don't know anything. Turns out that was exactly the case, and we got that right before the war even started. And you know, it's really interesting when you look at stuff like that, because a lot of people that are on the news per se, like the faces and the anchors on mainstream television networks, they don't know anything for the most part of what they're talking about. It's given to them via teleprompter. It's come up within a writing room, and they just read it off on air. So it's a talking head. And if you ask them what's going to happen and what are the primary points of concern down there, they're not even going to know. We do, however, and then we also have to get on air and present it like an anchor. So, you know, a pretty interesting thing that we do, not to toot our own whistle, but it is a lot more than most people in the mainstream would do, having a single hat on as the job. We have all of the hats, and we still manage all of them pretty decently. So a big thanks to you for the support and help this channel to keep running, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
And our next one goes to none other than Kerberos 3, who put in a massive $400 donation, by the way. A whopper, as people would call it. Not from Burger King, though. But we do appreciate that support very, very much, Kerberos. That is a humongous amount of support right there. And we sincerely do appreciate it. It's always hard to say what to say on Super Chats that large right there. But thank you very much, Kerberos. They said, I missed out on the stream. I've been working. And hopefully everyone's safe and taking care of yourself and loved ones. And by the way, pronouncing name Cerberus for English.
Kerberos? Is that how it's supposed to be?
Kerberos or Cerberus?
I think it's Kerberos, because I remember a prior super chat saying it's a K sound, I think. So I think it's supposed to be Kerberos. But a huge thanks to you so much for the support. And also, we are happy to have you here. It's all right to be missing out on the stream a little bit. Better late than never. But I got to say a humongous thanks to you for that unbelievably humongous support. Like, that is huge. Absolutely massive. And we thank you incredibly for that. And we've been pretty safe and taking care of ourselves lately. I've just been recovering from that hike that we did on Monday still. I'm almost done with being crippled. Like, I've been like legitimately, I'm not even exaggerating by saying that, folks. I have been crippled from that hike for days now, hardly even been able to walk. And finally today I got into walking enough that I was able to actually move around decently. And I was like, okay, I'm getting out of just being absolutely screwed from that hike. So I'm doing pretty good, and hopefully everyone else in the LSA is doing quite well too. I've seen some people saying that they're doing pretty good. Some people are saying that, you know, things could be a little bit better, and hopefully things will be getting better for them. And also, hopefully, Kerberos, I'm pronouncing the name correctly here, but let us know if we're not. And let's see. It's annoying when you, let's see. I'm trying to see if you said anything about the name pronunciation. And let us know, is it a K or is it a C sound? We'll see. But a huge thanks to you so much once again for support, and help this channel to keep it running. And I hope that does address that incredibly well. And also, Kerberos said, how was the hike? It was actually a really good one. We enjoyed it. We went up to a place called Red Pine Lake, which is right here. There's actually a upper Red Pine Lake, which I don't think either of us would have had the ability to get to, because I think both of us were physically destroyed from that hike. But this is where we went to, not to go and pull out the whole photo gallery, but this is where we were, right here. Very nice place.
Ah, yes, I see you know your mountains. Well, 10,000 feet, that's it. This is 10,000 feet up, though, right here. This is the highest I've ever been on foot.
Man, if only my damn all trails hadn't screwed me over with the copy and crop function, man. Like, I'm still angry about that, and they never emailed me back. Like,
I burned 1,400 calories in this hike right here, going up and down. 1,400. That's almost a day's worth of calories for the normal person.
According to my All Trails, it told me that I burned 2,900 calories on this hike, which I believe. I'm a good bit heavier than Matthew, by the way, folks. Like, So that's the reason why. And also the lake is very dried out here, actually. Do you see that, Matthew? Like, this thing is, like, tiny compared to when we were here. It was, like, all the way up to here.
Yeah, it was all that snow melt was making it large, and also the overflow goes down the waterfall.
Yeah, it does, but it was one hell of a view. It was an 8.5-mile round trip with a total elevation of 2,400 feet from start to the midway point up here at the Red Pine Lake. But it was a very enjoyable hike. I really enjoyed it a good deal. Well, actually, I'll have to be honest. It was a miserable hike. I was absolutely physically destroyed before I even turned around to go back down the mountain. My legs were Charlie horsing literally right below the lake, and I was like, "Damn, I think I'm at my physical limit here." But I was like, "I'm so damn close, I just got to get up there anyways." And so when I turned around, I was doing horrendously on the 4.2 miles back down to the parking lot, like badly.
Yeah, someone just had to be rescued off off these mountains right here today.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, like they apparently they went to that like rock face
Donut
thing.
Falls.
Oh, they went to Donut
No, no,
Falls.
no, it was Donut Falls, by the way. Just in case y'all don't know, you can show them a picture of Donut Falls if you want to, so to get a reference for what I'm talking about. They had to rescue a young man, a 17-year-old, from Donut Falls today. It's not really clear how it happened, but I heard some people speculating that maybe he tried to climb up the side of the waterfall, which some people do, by the way. Like you climb up there and you see the Donut Falls area. You have to climb to the top of the waterfall though to see it. And they're saying that he might have climbed up there, but it's not really clear. And then he fell and then nearly busted his head and all kinds of stuff. There's a huge sign right there saying danger of falling. But thankfully, though, he survived and they rescued him out of there. And I think he's recovering, I hope. But when we were out here, there was people trying to climb up this thing. Like when we were out there, we were watching it. I was like hoping and praying that somebody didn't fall and die right in front of us. That's really stupid to climb this, by the way. It's very dangerous and also very wet and slick too. You really can't climb up. There's a rope there that they installed, but I mean that's not enough to catch you if you're about to fall. So apparently this happens pretty often. I saw people commenting saying that it happens all the time.
There's these
That's a
chipmunks.
fat one.
Man, that's a fat one, man. This one eating well. But like it was crazy though getting up to the waterfall because the waterfall is another like 70 feet tall. Honestly, the Donut Falls Trail is probably one of the easiest ones we've done.
Oh yeah, that was a walk in the park compared to the other ones.
Yeah, I mean there was let's see, the Lake Blanche trailhead. This one's the one. Like, this one's actually shorter, crazily enough. A little bit taller by, like, an extra 300 feet than the Red Pine Lake Trail, but it's shorter in mileage. And honestly, folks, it's not the altitude that gets me, like, climbing up it. It's the mileage included with it, like, that really gets my ass really badly. Because, for example, there's this place called the Mill B Overlook right here, and it's 1,000 feet of vertical gain over 1.3 miles. And I can do that easy. Like it doesn't seem that bad to me. And when I say easy for me, I'm still out of shape. But compared to everything else I do, it's pretty easy. And that's not bad at all to do 1,000 feet in 1.3 miles. But if I did 2.4 thousand feet, like the Red Pine Lake, over 4.2 miles, that is absolutely slaughtering me because it's the distance and the height combined that really make it rough. So, like I would say that honestly, it would be a lot easier to deal with elevation over distance, than the two of them. And Red Pine Lake really was a tough one, but, Donut Falls was quite easy. Like, a very nice looking one too. It's really neat. So I would recommend that one to anyone who's coming out here. I think what is it, Matthew? Like 600 feet of elevation over like 2 miles in. So 4 mile round trip with 600 feet of elevation at the peak.
For Donut Falls, yeah, it sounds about right. It wasn't too much elevation on that, hardly at all for the most part.
Man, it was so nice and it was so beautiful. Let me see if I can show it to y'all a little bit here. Maybe we can have a little example. Oh, well, this isn't really what it looked like when we were up
Oh,
there.
this is when it's bad. This is when you do not come up here. By the way,
They got
then it
mosquitoes.
becomes avalanche. It becomes avalanche season up here when it gets into winter. So it's always a bit sketchy. Like at most of these trails that we're doing right now during the summer, you really should not do those during the winter because unless you have like, your avalanche beacon, a shovel, and you're prepared to dig yourself out or call for help or something while you're buried under snow and suffocating, then it's probably not a good idea.
They don't have any good pictures of this trail. Let me see if they have pictures of it here. That's what the trail. Oh, that's the top of the falls. I'm trying to see. This is what the trail looks like in the summer. when you're going up and down it. Very enjoyable, very nice. Um, and that's what it looks like in the fall. We need to do these trails in the fall. That's gonna be really cool looking. And look, dysentery
Uh, yeah, hantavirus rodents. But
and
also,
bubonic plague.
oh yeah, also all these nasty things. Also, I think tomorrow is the day the Alpine coaster opens up. You know those like little manual roller coaster type deals. It
Really?
opens up at Alta. I think tomorrow, June 20th. Oh, there's a
Man,
deadly ass moose
the
right there. It's deadly ass.
moose.
The most dangerous thing you probably run across. Honestly, probably more dangerous than the black bear.
Man, it's like how people in Australia are like, man, the deadliest thing's gotta be the alligators. It's like, no, cassowary. It's like, that thing is the deadliest thing out there. It's not the bears, not the mountain lions, it's the moose. Weird enough, like, very weird. But look at these cute little, like, groundhog things, the prairie dogs.
Ground squirrels.
I think, aren't those just prairie dogs?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Man, look at them cute little creatures. They don't they don't care if you walk near them. Like, they actually will walk up to you and look at you, but don't touch them. Don't touch them. They got millions of diseases, apparently. They got the bubonic plague, hantavirus, and a couple of other things. Also, make sure that if one of these have gone through a landfill in Argentina, that you're goofy, don't go walking up in the landfill. Like, please.
Yeah, yeah, it's really something. But you know, honestly though, I see people talking about how dangerous it is. It's really overblown how dangerous it is. Like going here to the Wasatch National Forest. Yes, you have wildlife out here. There's moose, there's black bear, there's mountain goats, there's mountain lions. You will probably not run across pretty much any of those, like 99% of the time. But if you do run across one, as long as you have your bear spray with you, because any animal with any type of mucous membrane, if you spray bear spray at it, it's going to run the opposite direction. It's just going to do that naturally. And also, if you keep your distance and you don't mess with them, and also you're aggressive, like scare them off so that way they don't think you're a prey, you'll be fine for the most part. The snakes really, the snakes is the one thing that I really have a hard time with. Like at lower elevations, you have the rattlesnakes, and they're out pretty heavy this year in the heat. So that's the one thing I really don't like dealing with, which is usually why I go hiking at higher elevations to try to get away from the rattlesnakes.
Man, those rattlesnakes are rough at low altitude. I went to the trail that we did in the winter down here near to the Bear Canyon Suspension Bridge, which is down here, and it's called the Orson something trail right here. And the Orson Smith Trail is what's called. And I went up this thing, and I made it to about right here, and I turned around because just on the way up, I ran into 3 or 4 snakes on the way up. And then on the way down, I ran into like another 3. It was unreal. I was like, this is just unbelievable. I've never seen this many snakes in one place. So I was like, I'm not doing snakes on a plane out here on these plains. Like, dude, snakes on the plane, but because it's the
Oh yeah.
plains. Like, man, like,
Man, I don't mess with the rattlesnakes, really. I just don't do it. I just don't do snakes in general. Like, and also out here, it's illegal to like have to take care of one. If you have to take care of it, it's illegal out here in Utah. It was not illegal in Alabama. So if you run across one out here, you just gotta like hope the thing's not angry or something because you can't really mess with it.
man, you could go on a reckoning against snakes in Alabama. Nobody gave a damn. You kill one snake out here in Utah, I believe it's a pretty significant misdemeanor, if I'm not mistaken. Killing a bear is actually a felony, almost like murdering a person. So you have to like have a actual case of self-defense because the bear is going to get shot, and then the bear family's going to come out onto the local TV and be like, "We want justice," and you're going to be like in court. You're going to have like one side of the courtroom filled with like bears, and then the other side is going to be people, and it's like man versus bear and everything. It's going to be a whole deal. But yeah, you got to be careful about, taking care of animals out here. Unlike Alabama, nobody cared in Alabama. Out here, it's actually a crime to take out animals. Also, someone said, "Geez, well, it's kind of for a reason." Like back in the day, they were basically conducting like a society structured like extinction event against all the animals out here, so they put the laws into place to stop extinctions from happening. So with that in mind, legally it makes sense because clearly you don't want keystone animals getting wiped out by the folks out here. But it makes it tough nowadays, like if you run into a snake and it's like posing a threat to you, to just easily take the thing out without thinking that it might be a crime.
Yeah, you definitely got to have those laws these days. You never know when the next billionaire is going to roll through Utah and want to start making snake boots or something like that and start wiping out the whole rattlesnake population across the whole state. You never can tell, when those billionaires show up. They tend to take what they want and leave nothing.
We're going to have 40,000 acres of snakeskin boots. No, we're not 20,000. Like, man, it's like 10,000. But man, they're still going to get them. They're still going to get them. But I would say though, folks, if you ever want to go and see beautiful mountains, these definitely are it. Like the Wasatch Mountains, especially Little Cottonwood Canyon. That's both of our favorites, I believe. It's definitely my favorite. You know, it makes me wonder, man, what do the real Rockies look like? You know, like around like Aspen and stuff. Like, there's got to be some cool looking stuff out here, but it doesn't look like they have all the trails that we have, you know, like near the Salt Lake, which is interesting to me. Let's see here. How about
This
this?
is the premier place for hiking
Whoa.
and relative safety in Utah, like Little Cottonwood and Big Cottonwood. Anywhere else you go, you start running across more deadlier animals, like you know, like grizzlies and brown bears and stuff like that. Starts getting a little bit more dangerous.
Look at that. Look at that.
Wow, look at that!
Wow,
I
that's
heard
crazy.
the bears smoke weed out here.
Oh man, I'm absolutely gassed. Like,
A hot boxing bear. Oh man, a fiend.
wow, man, this is a really like this looks insanely isolated though. Like it would literally take forever to hike from Aspen to get out there. So basically inaccessible. But what about some places? There's really nothing accessible near to Aspen. Like everything's like a 10, 20 mile hike from the town. That's honestly kind of tough, man. Like, I guess we're kind of blessed here in Salt Lake because you
Man.
literally drive out of town right up to a trail and go hike it. Out here, you got to like really do some distance to even get to them.
Man, most people in Aspen aren't going out here anyway. Like the people in Aspen, they're most people in Aspen, you have to be very wealthy to be there. So most of them are like hanging out inside their house and stuff like that. They're not really heading out into the wilderness for the most part.
Well, where in the world do you do that out here in Colorado, though? There's got to be a place. I mean, like, this town doesn't even exist. Like, they made it look like it existed on the map. It doesn't exist. There's got to be something out here, like some place that you can go to go on trip. Maybe if we go closer to Denver, maybe around here, maybe. Looks like this one. I don't like
What's the
this
name
one.
of that mountain?
This is called Saxon Mountain.
Saxon. I thought it said something else. Couldn't read it there for a second.
Sexy mountain. Like, man, like, but honestly, man, this mountain doesn't have. Oh, is that a? Wow, that's an old processing plant, like for a mine that collapsed in on itself. That's really cool. But kind of wild. This mountain doesn't really have the same allure that ours have. You know, like ours have like this alpine thing going to it, like Switzerland. These kind of, I don't know, they just don't seem the same. You know.
Yeah, it doesn't seem the same. I think for the cost, like out here in Salt Lake City, like if you go somewhere like you're looking here in Colorado and you try to live here, you're going to be spending like 3 times like the cost of living we're spending right now trying to be in these spots you're looking at. And in my opinion, the mountains don't look as good than where we're at. For the cost, the mountain sizes, and also the general like safety of the wildlife being more tame out here, you don't get any better than being out here in Utah, like toward the northern part of the state. You don't get much better than that.
These are cool looking. I mean, this part's cool. Like that one's pretty neat, but it doesn't have the rocks, you know, like the rocks are really what makes it. Because when you look at these mountains out here in the actual Rockies, like out here in this range, and then you go over here to the Wasatch, when you look at the Wasatch Mountains, like Pfeifferhorn and whatnot, they're actually stone peaked like the Alps. And it gives like that feeling of like a European alpine mountain range or some other more exotic mountain range. And that's really neat to me. Like when you look at
Yeah.
that, that looks very foreign looking.
Yeah, it really does. Also, by the way, I see people talking about Utah. What's up with like YouTubers like flocking to Utah? Like I'm sort of being a hypocrite because we're also YouTubers and we
What's
flock
up
to
with
Utah.
it,
But
man?
but what is up with it? You know the dude that made the video about the Trump phone, like he unboxed it, was talking about the paper in it and all that stuff.
Yeah, he's here in Salt
He
Lake
lives
as
in
well.
downtown. Yeah, he
Yeah.
lives in downtown Salt Lake. I found out yesterday. And also, there's the Strodman is out here. He's a car YouTuber. Matt's Off Road is out here. He does stuff in I think southern Utah. Jerry Rig Everything's out here. Let's see here. I can't remember some other ones. I'm forgetting them. If you're listening, by the way, I'm not trying to insult you. I just can't remember your name right off the bat. But there's a lot of YouTubers out here, like a lot. There's also that's right. There's Heavy Sparks is out here, I think, as
Nick
well.
Shirley.
He does like the Nick Shirley. Yeah, he's out here. And then
Don't aim it at yourself. Like
there's a lot of YouTubers out here. Actually, it seems like it's a YouTuber state.
It is interesting. Honestly, it kind of feels like it's turning into like Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas is for like all the podcast people, and now it feels like Utah is turning into the place. Utah YouTube. That's why, man. It's the mental connection. It sounds close to YouTube. It's Utah, though.
That is true. That is true. It could be because there's so much public lands out here. Like if you do a gun channel, like you have free public ranges on the BLM lands. Like if you go out there to the shooting enclosure or the shooting, not the shooting enclosure, but the shooting area, you can go out there and target practice and not have to go to a range, which is very convenient for YouTube videos if you're like into the whole firearms type thing for YouTube. And also, like, if you're doing stuff like off-roading, I mean, that's like, off-roading heaven out here for the most part. So all those type YouTube channels are thriving out here.
That is true. That's true. And also, before we move on from this rabbit hole here, one more thing. Someone said the Cascades are really the Alps of America. Yeah, they are. Like, yeah, like if we're being honest, this right here is the best mountain range in the United States for scenery. I've never seen it actually like in it. I've never been in it, but I have seen pictures of it, and we did go to Seattle, and you could see it from the distance, and it really did look impressive even from there. It was like, wow, look at that. I mean, it's unbelievable how that looks up there. This really does look like the Alps, at least in my opinion. I've never been to the Alps, so I don't know. But it looks a lot like it to me, at least in my mind, or it looks kind of like British Columbia, which this mountain range is a part of the same range that's in British Columbia. So really cool.
I've just been always trying to get to the mountains on the Toblerone box.
Man, that's that Matterhorn, I believe. What's the matter, baby? Nothing, sugar. How about you? Man, like, I always think of that every time I say the name.
Yo.
Bro, have you ever heard, like, it's like, have you, father, have you ever heard of a matter, baby? And the guy go, huh? He said, a matter, baby. And then the dad said, what's the matter, baby? And then the guy said, nothing, sugar. How about you? And it was like a punchline, like a joke.
He said it to his son?
No, he's like, the son said it to his dad. Like, it was like a punchline joke, like a dad joke kind of a thing. Dude, it's not like no, don't make it like that, man. Like, hey, yo, but the Toblerone Mountain is that one.
Hey, that's it. Yeah, that's it. That's definitely it right there. That's where they make the chocolate inside the mountain.
I don't think they make it in the mountain.
They should.
I don't think they can do that, man. Like the cost and everything. Man, imagine climbing that though. Like, all jokes aside, like that's got to be brutal.
That is brutal. Also, by the way, seeing those tram cars right there moving along, Park City, it actually does have a free chairlift. It was running yesterday when I went and looked at it. It has a free
Really?
chairlift that runs. Yeah, it does. Apparently, they turn it on at certain times, but I'm not really sure when. But yeah, that's pretty cool. Also, their bus service is free. I found out apparently around the whole place.
Really?
Oh, somebody brought the bar with them.
Man, of course, it's Switzerland. Man, like, why wouldn't they? Like, you can buy those anywhere. Man, that's actually, dude, that's wild, though. A mountain like that jagged, that brutal looking. That's really crazy. There's only one mountain like that here in the United States. Would you like to take a guess at what it is?
Is it in Zion?
It's in the lower 48.
I have no idea.
We've driven by it before at one point in our life. It's close to us. It's something you've seen.
Grand Teton?
Yes, that is it. The Grand Tetons.
Oh.
The Grand Tetons actually have the same geological structure as the Matterhorn in Switzerland, like the same kind of rocks, which is what led, I believe, if I remember the geology of it correctly, to the same kind of jagged rock formations being created in the Grand Tetons, which is what gives them their alpine and unique look.
These were pretty nice right here. I just didn't really like the surrounding areas that you could live. Like Jackson Hole was the closest place to it, and Jackson Hole was like, it was not a very it was not a very comforting place. It felt very like superficial. Like I didn't like the feel of Jackson Hole. Like it was a neat place, but like to live there, I wouldn't want to live there, even though it's nice. Just because the fuel wasn't right. But yeah, the Tetons though looked fantastic. We didn't see it when it was like this. I don't think we saw it when it was more barren looking.
Yeah, we saw it. We saw it in like the late summer, so it didn't have any snow on it. It was all rock. But when it has snow on it in the earlier parts of the year, just a little bit capping the peaks, it's really stunning. Honestly, very beautiful. This is just south of Yellowstone, by the way. So if you ever do Yellowstone, you can just get a rental car, drive through Yellowstone. which is a hell on earth in its own because there's so many people driving through Yellowstone on that one scenic highway that it's like an endless traffic jam for like 100 miles. But once you get out of there, you can just keep driving south and you make it straight to the Grand Tetons and you can just drive right into them, which is really
You
cool.
know, Bozeman's a pretty neat place in Montana. It's like a smaller place. I think it's more of like a kind of like a young person's like like young professionals place now. I think it used to be more of like a remote town, like but it's now more of like a young people's. I don't know if hipster is the right word, but it's kind of like more like that apparently. But it's a neat little downtown they have going on. I've only seen the main street one time, and that was the only look I ever got at it. So I'd be curious to see this again.
Man, we went through that thing at night and that main street was bumping. They had every single bar open and the people were crowding the streets. It's a university town, actually. That's why it's like that, is that they have, I believe it's like the, Montana State University's here, which is a fairly large university. So there's a whole giant student body that lives there in the tens of thousands, like UAB. Like there's like 40,000 students for this place.
Wow.
And that's why they flock the streets at night because it's like Auburn or, Tuscaloosa or something.
Yeah, I like Montana. Like Montana's a nice state. Like it's a barren state, but it's a nice state though. And also Bozeman's the entrance to Yellowstone. Like that's like the gateway to it. Like it starts Yellowstone. Like if you go down south from there.
Well,
But it's a neat state.
Well, it's not very barren. I mean, there's a lot to it. Like let's see here.
I mean, it's like sparsely populated. Is what I'm saying.
Oh, I thought you meant barren for like landscape. I was but there's like beautiful national forests like these. Like many great things naturally, nature wise, to say it that way, to see in Montana. And also they have Glacier National Park. And who doesn't love Glacier National Park? It's a really cool place.
A glacier. Look at that. I want to see Spokane. I want to see Bozeman, and I want to see Missoula. I want to see all three of those places one day in Montana. Spokane's
Look at
not in
that.
Montana; it's in Washington. It's like around the edge of it. That is some clear water.
Dude,
That's
it's
almost
like
as clear as that water up there at the Alpine Lake at Red Pine Lake.
Dude, that's clear. I mean, like that literally, like that's like the ladies floating on air. That's why I've never seen water that clear. Not even Red Pine Lake's water was that clear.
Yeah, you gotta watch out for water that clear.
Man, that's got that special brain eating amoeba in that thing, man. That thing gets out of the water and goes, "You mine now!" Like and it like gets on into you, and it's like, no. Man, honestly, man, I would be scared to get in water like that. Like when water looks too clear, folks, and too gentle, you kind of got to be scared of that as well. Generally, folks, the running rule is that if you see any running water in the wild anywhere, it's probably not even safe to drink or touch for the most part. Historically, that's how it always was. People don't know that, but back in the day, the only way to make sure that whatever liquids you were drinking were safe was to brew it into alcohol. And that's why beer and whatnot is very popular, even in the modern day, is because it became popular because that was the only way to drink water safely, because it either had alcohol in it that was killing most of the germs, and the distillation process also killed off most of the germs as well. So, drinking water like we do in the modern day is actually something of a modern phenomenon. Most people wouldn't do that in history. But
Yeah,
anyways,
before the water got pure, people used to just drink Coke. Like they still do that down in Mexico. Like they just drink Coca-Cola before they got pure water.
man, actually, that's not wrong. Like that for
I
like
know.
a certain part of history, that's actually true. Like,
I was doing the conspiracy theory thing. There's always a grain of truth at the bottom of a conspiracy theory, but the whole rest of it's like bogus. That's what I was doing right there. A part of it's a joke because obviously Coke wasn't around before the water like was like getting purified and stuff like that. But down in Mexico, they actually do like drink Coke like that. Like it's easier to get your hands on a bottle of Coca-Cola and drink it than you can purified water.
no. Coke was around before purified water. Like, so for a time, there actually were
But
people
but
drinking.
Coke. Well, wait a minute. No, it wasn't. Because in order to make Coca-Cola, you had to have purified water in order to put it in the Coke.
No, you like the purification came through the process of creating the soda. There's a part of the process where I believe you have to boil the water to make the proper mix and have the mix integrated into the water
No.
properly.
No, because no. I can just prove that with some basic logic. If you go to a soda machine, the soda machine simply takes a stream of carbonated water with syrup and it combines them in the stream, and then it puts it in your cup. So no, the water you just add water to the syrup.
Hold up, I need to go check
You
this
don't
here.
you don't like they don't ship Coca-Cola like unless it's like pre-bottled or something like that. They don't ship it like all together.
Well, no, I'm not saying in the modern day that's how they make Coke. Like I'm saying back in the
No, they
day.
did that. No, they did that like at the drugstores and stuff like that. They would get the syrup out of the jug or whatever, and they would like pump it into the like carbonated water. Like remember they would do that by hand.
Yeah, but they also sold the bottles, like, as well, like, from the very start, like, the pre-made bottles. Like, they did both,
I
like,
think
they
this
had
might,
the
I think this might have to be a fight.
Yeah, we're gonna have to slug it out. Like, man, like, this is the one
I'm
we're
going to a
dying
brawl.
on. Like, man, this is the one we are going to fight and knock teeth out over. Like, this, like, like, man, let me see here really
I
quickly
got a
because
better one. Forget the purified shit. What's better, the American Coke or the Mexican Coke, Coca-Cola?
Mexican Coke all the way. I mean, obviously, like, nobody likes American Coke.
I think the Mexican Coke is better because they put the real sugar in it.
I would agree. You can taste the difference a little bit, but let's see. When did I need to find this out? Coca-Cola first began distribution. Let's see. Oh, I'm right. I'm right. Man, Coca-Cola started distributing on May 8th of 1886 with independent bottling starting in 1894. So for a period of time over like 8 years, it was just soda fountains only, and they would get the mix and then use the water with it. But in 1894, they started producing the pre-bottled version. Water purification only started in the United States in earnest in Albany, New York in 1897, with one of the last communities getting a water filter in 1908. So there was a period in time when Coca-Cola was getting distributed and there was not clean, like verified, clean, purified drinking water nationwide in the United States. So that is true. Like at the time, people could have
Son of a
drinking Coca-Cola,
bitch.
like to make sure that they avoid impure drinking water.
Damn.
You owe me a
Well, I guess
Coke.
I don't owe you nothing.
Man, I don't owe you shit. Like, man.
Man, I tell you what, I'll let you have a pass. But honestly, like I have to eat my foot on that one. I thought that they were around. I thought the purified water was around before the Coca-Cola, but I guess the progression was the same way that Mexico is currently experiencing right now, where it's easier to get your hands on a bottle of Coca-Cola than it is to get your hands on a bottle of water. Because if it costs the same and you can barely find any water anywhere, then why wouldn't you buy the Coca-Cola? So I guess that's true. I guess I'll have to
Man,
eat my foot.
like honestly, man, like that's something that's like a whole history rabbit hole in itself. Water purification that is very fascinating because before water filters and water purification like we have nowadays became a thing, the way to keep water as clean as possible was to just segregate the sewage from the fresh water as much as possible. And they didn't even know that up until like the 1840s, I believe. And so sometimes the sewage water would actually mix with the fresh water because they would share basically the same pipe works, I guess you could say, and the troughs would be exposed, so there could be washover of sewage into the fresh water sometimes. That happened a
Huh.
lot in Paris. Like that's why a lot of people would die of dysentery in Paris. And then it was found out in London, I believe in the 1840s, that it was sewage that was actually transmitting cholera in the drinking water supply, and that's when they completely rebuilt London sewer work systems during that era. And they did an amazing job at it too, which is a whole other story. But they reworked the whole sewer system to keep the drinking water completely separated from the sewage to try and keep it as safe as possible. And even still, drinking the water came with risks.
Did you know that down in Mexico, Coca-Cola is actually a religion? Did you know that? In some places, in remote places inside of Mexico, they'll actually perform like religious rituals with Coca-Cola. Like allegedly, there's some people down there that will actually get diabetes from drinking too much sugar, not just from Coca-Cola, but from other stuff as well, and eating too much sweets and stuff like that. And then they'll like do a ritual with some Coca-Cola to try to cure the diabetes.
Really?
Yeah, like legit. Like I'm not joking. That's how bad the ignorance gets. Like with people not understanding how bad sugar can be for you. Like that the knowledge about how bad sugar is and the connection between sugar and diabetes in some areas of rural Mexico is not good at all. Like it's really not.
Honestly, it's not really good in America when you think about it because the diabetes rate in America is pretty high too. I wonder if the Mormons are like a part of this group because man, they drink down sugary anything like there's no end to it. Like sugar is not unhealthy at all. It's interesting. Like there are more like sugar related sweet shops out here in Salt Lake than I've ever seen anywhere in my life. There's one on every corner.
Yeah, I'm not really. I don't really drink that stuff. Really, I don't really drink sugary drinks at all. Like I don't really even get that swig out here very much. Those like
Man, you're
dirty soda
full
things
of
they
it.
do. Now I haven't got one of those in like a month. I
A
really
month,
don't like.
bro. We got one two
Yeah,
weeks ago.
no, I didn't.
Yeah, you did. It was that little orange one, the
That was
citrus
a month
one.
ago.
There's no way that was a
That was
month
a whole
ago.
month ago. Yeah, that
Bro,
was a
that
whole
was
month ago. You're
no
losing track of
way.
time. Yeah,
Man,
it was a
maybe I
month.
am, but there's no way in hell that was a month ago, dude. That was like 2 weeks ago max.
Nah, man, that was a month ago. But no, I rarely ever like I really watch my sugar consumption a lot because I'm not trying to get diabetes. Although I don't think I'm really at the high risk level for that. Because I think like things that add to your like propensity to get diabetes is like being generally like more on the overweight side. Like and honestly having complications, it can make you have diabetes or get it a lot easier. At least that's the way I understand it. Now, if I come down with it next month, I'll be eating my foot on that. But hopefully not.
You know something else that's interesting about Latin American countries is that like in marketing sweets, like sugary like sweets, like pastries, whatnot, they put them out in the open in their stores, and people in most Latin American countries, from what I've heard, will judge whether the sweets are good enough to buy or not based on whether honeybees are gathering around the store and crawling all over the sweets. Because if the honeybees are gathering around, apparently the sugar content's good and it's fresh enough that the bees will mess with it because apparently they can pick up on that sort of a thing and they'll buy the sweets based off of that. Kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah, it's kind of unsanitary.
Well, I mean, it's not like honeybees are like wildly unsanitary. I mean, like, it's not like, well, do honeybees carry any disease? Let me pull that up. Do honeybees carry any diseases? And the answer is, let's see. Oh, bacteria, fungi, viruses. Well,
Little
well,
nasty bees.
man, little nasty ass bee. Like it's getting up on that bread. Let's see. Also, actually, let's see. So I'm looking here, and yeah, we do need to move on. That's true. So it looks like mostly the diseases only affect other bees, not people. So that's kind of a good thing to know about it because I was about to be like, damn, honeybees are like like bio bombs. No, they're not. Like, but anyways, with that, a big thanks to you once again for the support, Kerberos3, and helping this channel to keep it running. Thank you for the unbelievably massive support once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Thomas Schott once again. And thank you, good sir Thomas, for that $20 support. He said,
Hey!
my friend is a conspiracy nut and says I'm being watched for commenting on YouTube. And I told him I'm on the government watch list. And he said, I knew it. And I replied, I wanted a Rolex, but I only got a Timex. And he laughed. And thanks for the material. Your friend is actually he's actually not as crazy as he sounds, by the way, because, actually, the whole idea of a government watch list is kind of an obsolete concept because everybody's on the watch list now because of the expansive technology that's been deployed here in the country. Virtually, like every message that's sent on the internet is stored in a server. Well, I was about to violate my OPSEC there, but it's stored in the
It's
southern
right next
part.
to me. I'm living next to like,
Actually, I store it in my basement. Not really. But it's actually down there in the southern part of Salt Lake City. There's a NSA data center that stores all that stuff right down there. It's the biggest one in the country. And it has all your search history is right down there. But they got access to all that. But Enforcer, what say you?
well, that's something. I do have to say, he's not that out there, really, Thomas, at all. I would say not one bit, really. And also, I got to say, thank you so much for enjoying the material. I think I did that joke on air, and I thought it was a pretty good one, but I had heard it from somewhere else. I wasn't an original person with that joke. I had heard it somewhere else before and kind of copied it. So just want to make it clear, I was kind of plagiarizing someone else, and then you plagiarized me. But that's the circle of jokes. Everybody's got to plagiarize everybody for a good joke. But a big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And with that, we're on the next one.
Also, Butchie7 said, don't give the UK any more ideas. The UK can't afford it, by the way. Like, if you knew how much that data center costs down there that the NSA built, like, they have a sniper shacks down there. They got snipers in the sniper shack. They have, like, a state-of-the-art entrance to it. It is, like, an insane setup they got down there. Like, state-of-the-art everything. And, like, memory galore. I don't know what the exact memory capacity is on that thing down there, but when you drive by it, that is some serious power in that building. Like, it's got its own substation and everything with it. Like, it's on a part of the national National Guard base. Like they built it on the Guard base down there. What is it? Fort Williams or something like that. I think it's called down there. I believe the National Guard Center. It's something like that, like Fort
Pendleton.
Williams, I think.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
Let me see.
show them the thing down there. Show them. We can show them on the map.
Let's see here. Hell, where?
Probably Mountain
It's
View.
Camp Williams. Yeah, it's Camp Williams. It's built on their land.
Yeah, that's it, and that's it right there. That big old thing right next to that highway, right there. That's it. Yeah, they got the guard shacks. They got the snipers out here. Occasionally, they'll have the Apaches fly over this thing from time to time. That come from a different base up the road. But yeah, this is it.
And here's the electrical substation for it right here. And here's the giant like NASCAR racetrack road they built around it, and then the checkpoint right here to even get into it, and the little parking lot that they have that you got to apparently walk a long ass way to even get into your job, whatever that may be. I don't even know.
The IT managers and stuff like that, like their network designers and stuff. There's a lot of maintenance that goes in that kind of stuff, like just keeping it running.
Honestly, probably so. Those helicopters actually come from this little place right up here, South Valley Regional Airport. I forgot the name for it for the Army, but they have a rotary aviation wing based out of here, and it actually is one of the ones that operates the AH-64E Apache, so that's kind of a cool fact about it. But anyways, a big thanks to you for supporting helping this channel to keep it running, Thomas, and with that, we're on the next one.
And our next one goes to Blind Man, who puts in a 20. And thank you, Blind Man, as well, for that support. And they said, mainstream media being biased and slow, flips newspaper over to the next page and finds the article I'm printing covers 2% of what you guys covered 4 days ago, and 85% politics, and 15% ads. Absolute nonsense.
I gotta agree. That's how it really is. Like, like if I pull up right now, let me type this in on my Google News. Let's see. Here we are. So here's what the news is right now if you go and just type in news. Let's see. Trump visits the new Air Force One, so that's a political thing. Barack and Michelle Obama, that's a political thing. Israel continues attacks on Lebanon. That's actually like actual world news. Trump envoy heads to Switzerland for potential. That's actually world news as well, crazily enough. Maloney, once Trump's closest ally, that's political, like that whole thing. We didn't even cover that today, but actually the president got us in a whole foreign policy spat now with the Italians because he made some kind of like insulting remark about the Italian prime minister, and she didn't take it well. So there's that whole thing going on. And then very much domestic politics here in the bottom right. Like that's been dominating the domestic politics headlines. So that's what it is. I mean, most of it is like domestic politics related stuff. And it's really kind of sad to see that that's what some people call news and think it is. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
And also, they're saying now that they're investigating, that reflecting pool in front of the memorial and stuff like that in D.C. They're saying that pro-algae activists sabotaged it or something. Some crazy talk going on with that. So pro-algae activists. Yeah, I saw that. I also saw the fella who allegedly was the contractor for it. It looks like a supervillain.
Well, he's got like a twirly mustache and everything.
Yeah, and he's very rotund.
Oh, very rotund. Dr. Eggman?
I don't know. The whole thing about this is really weird, but yeah, it turned green again. But they're saying pro-algae activists like threw some stuff in the water or something like that. That doesn't explain why the paint was allegedly peeling out of the thing. It's like I don't know algae being like corrosive. And then they poured that hydrogen peroxide in there, or whatever they poured in there. It's like some bleach or something like that. And then it only gathered around. And then it only gathered around the edges of the thing. Like, it didn't go in the middle of the pool. It didn't disperse. I don't think they mixed it up or anything like that. So it just went around the edges.
Man, honestly, man, that hydrogen peroxide stuff's probably what messed up the paint and got it peeling when you think about it. It's bleach.
That shouldn't take the paint up.
Well, I mean, probably shouldn't, but it did. And the algae's back. They say the algae probably came from the actual pipeworks that lead into the reflecting pool, because it actually is supposed to filter, but that broke a while ago, and that's why it's algae filled all the time. So then the current group decided, let's just, completely skip that whole process. Let's just paint the bottom of it, like that'll fix it. And then the algae came back, which makes a lot of sense. Because it's literally a giant breeding pool for algae when you think about it. It's only a couple of inches deep. It's very wide, very long. It's literally it's a petri dish for algae. Like when you really think about that, you have to have a really good filtration system to keep the algae from growing. And just painting a still pool, the algae's going to grow. I mean, you can put a kiddie pool out in the summer in your yard, fill that thing with water, and leave it there for a couple of weeks. It's going to fill up with algae. Like there's no sabotage involved in that. It just happens. But anyways, with
Man,
that,
I was dying laughing. All the reporters, by the way, because the reporter is all kind of like a political agenda going on. And, I'm kind of like a little bit upset that the thing turned green again. I'll admit it looked good, like when it was clear, like it actually looked pretty decent. But now it's green again, and it seems like the money was basically wasted at this point. But all the reporters were like flocking out there and like grabbing the paint, peeling or stuff like that.
yeah,
Look at this,
getting out the
it's all
jars.
screwed. Yeah, it's like they're now like the top level reporters to go report on the paint peeling. It's like, what the? It's like, how about you go do some real journalism? It's like, yeah, the paint's peeling, but it's like there's more important stuff like what we're covering here on the channel right now, like earlier in the stream. It's like, come on.
Also, on a like kind of hot take, who even cared that the thing was green? Like that wasn't even a problem. Like I didn't hear the whole country going, "Damn, that thing's green." It's like nobody cared at all. Like, so why in the world was that even a problem? Like where this had to become a whole national deal about this one pool. It's like, why don't they go around, and like fix something that actually affects the country? Because nowadays, they paint the pool, they're gonna build some big ass arch over the river. It's like, why don't they do some stuff for the actual country instead of treating Washington D.C. like Pyongyang these days, where it's the only thing getting improvements? Like that's my 2 cents on it. But anyways,
I just want to know where the hell the pro algae activists come from. I never heard of this group. But moving into our next one
will
here.
Thrive. They have like a cult and everything for the algal blooms. But anyways, yeah, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Kerberos3, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Kerberos, for that $20 support. The second one of the night, by the way. He said, Enforcer from the ring with the drop.
And a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I gotta say, a big thanks to you for being a big appreciator. A big appreciator. I think you threw that one in, during the whole soda conversation. I'm not entirely sure, but a huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we're on the next one.
I also have a 20 from Blind Man yet again, and thank you, Blind Man, for the second support. He said, last one before I go on hiatus out to Colorado and hike. Scientists found yeast in Otzi and a 5,300-year Iceman and decided to make sourdough bread with it, and they are now attempting to make beer with it. LLT, LSA, and see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
And did they live?
Yeah, they lived. I mean, it was a safe culture of sourdough, so it was fine. I mean, they ate it. But I wouldn't eat the yeast off of a 5,300-year-old dead man. Like generally to me, like that's disgusting.
Nasty as hell.
Yeah, it's nasty. But they're just trying to see, oh my god. Like the whole thing about it, by the way, scientifically, is that it's a yeast culture that's 5,300 years old and has had absolutely no adulteration or changes to its structure. So they're going like the thought was, what in the world would sourdough from 5,300 years ago taste like? That's why they did it, and now they're trying to figure out what beer from 5,300 years ago would taste like as well with the same yeast culture. But I'm not going to lie, I just find that stuff disgusting. I know the body's been completely deactivated. It's thousands of years old. It's not like you can get anything from it, but something about it just rubs me wrong. I'm like, oh, I'm like that's just gross. But a big thanks to you for support. It is really interesting though. And I wonder what it did taste like. I am curious about that. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a $10 support from Steve, and Steve said, I have cigars saved up for when shit finally happens. YouTube won't let me send a super chat with the redacted events in the message, but that's what I'm saving it for.
And honestly, not a bad idea. I wish you the best of luck on your endeavors, and I hope that they're around when you need them. And a big thanks to you once again, and we're on the next one.
We also have a 10 from Crispy Climber, and they said LSA Worm might be funnier, but man, that Russian flying saucer deal was up there. And thank you guys, and y'all got that common sense up. It's pretty sweet.
Thank you so much for enjoying our common sense approach, Crispy Climber. And I gotta say, the big buoy worm was a pretty funny thing, but that lid was something else. I mean, we never had anything organically come out of the news like that in a while. So a huge thanks to you for the support, and with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a $10 support from Rye Guy SR, and thank you, good sir, as well. He said, the meme with Zelensky holding the lid to the tank like a pot lid while sprinkling some salt. Please show it if you can, and take one from the chat, and also don't beg for pictures.
Hey, Matthew, can you find that for us real quick? Can you see if that is out there for us to show?
Let's see how good my skills are. Let's see how good we can find this. right here. They say he's pretty good at this, they say, but this is a very niche thing to find. Let's see here. Let's see if we can spot this. Um, let's see here. I've got one of them. I've got two. Let's see here. So I don't think I've got the salt and pepper one, but I do have some other ones that you can show though.
Oh, let's take a gander at 'em. Oh, let's see here. Um, oh, let's see. We don't want the Putin one. That Putin one is poo poo. But we got Silver Surfer Zelensky. Like we got like that's one hell of a one right there. Really something. Honestly, that was pretty well done. We've got Putin riding the lid. And this
Oh
one,
wow! Look at him looking a little odd up there.
I'm not gonna lie, not really masculine. More much Taba like, like
Yeah, he's looking a little much tougher. He's looking a little much tougher. He's a flamboyant man, Kathleen. He's a flamboyant man.
he's giving off them Slay Queen vibes, more or less. It's not really the right kind of vibe. Let's see, and then we got that one, which looks like a movie poster, and then we have. Oh, bro,
Hey.
he grew 4 chins on this one, bro. Like
Yeah. Top of the morning to you.
I actually made a spoof thumbnail that day. We never showed it on air. I don't think we're going to show it on air, but I made a spoof thumbnail. It was a pretty funny one to me. And I sent it to Matthew as a joke. He's like, "We're not using that," and I was like, "Obviously not." I was like, "We're certainly not using it," but it is funny though. But I can't show it to y'all because it has explicit expletives in the title description on the thumbnail, so I can't show it on air. But it was a pretty funny one. I wish we could find the one that you're asking for, though, Ryguy SR. But sadly, it doesn't look like we'll be able to find it, at least right now. But a big thanks to you for the support, and we will make sure to take one from the chat in your honor. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so I'm going to read this one off, and then I'll have to be right back in just a second. I got to go check something. But Dilo put in a question. He said, if Russia collapses, will it fracture into several nuclear-armed states, and how would NATO respond to that?
Generally, it will not fracture into several nuclear-armed states because, according to the UN resolutions and how it would happen, there has to be a group that is deemed the successor state to the Russian Federation. So that country would be able to legally possess nuclear weapons. All of the other ones would be in violation of the non-proliferation treaties, and so they would either be threatened with significant sanctions, or they would have action taken against them to secure the nuclear weapons and return them to the successor state. So there really wouldn't ever be in any real scenario a situation where there's multiple permanently nuclear armed states to come out of the situation. Some of them might temporarily have nuclear weapons, but the economic pressure of trying to keep them will most likely lead them to relinquish them. This will be giving them a decent amount of benefits and also consequences to getting rid of them or keeping them on the other way around. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And a big thanks to you once again for support, Ryguy SR, and helping this channel to keep on running and helping us to address a live chat there. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Raphael Saya. And thank you very much, Raphael, for the 10. He said, hello, enforcers. And your analysis of the situation, answer all my questions. And take one from the chat in LLT, LSA.
Hey, and a big thanks to you for the support. And we will make sure to take one from the chat. So, Matthew, what do we got?
And this one goes to YT, who said, any news on the BS happening in Cuba?
Oh no, I'm trying to keep it at one disaster at a time right now. So we decided to keep that one off of the radar today. Actually, sadly, I didn't have any updates today, to be entirely honest, that we could cover. So that's why we didn't cover it. So we don't have anything out of there right now. So I hope that does address that live chat well. And a big thanks to you once again, Raphael, for the support. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a $10 support from Kyle Padell. He said, we still have Wild Buffalo in Oklahoma. I thought you were talking about the restaurant for a minute, like Buffalo Wild Wings for some reason. But he said, we still have Wild Buffalo in Oklahoma. And I was taking a photo near Mount Scott with my dog. And out in the distance, there was a wild buffalo grazing.
Let me see here if I can get one of these wild bison.
He was with his dog.
He got that dog with him. Let me
It's
see
my
here.
dog.
Here we are, them wild bison. Look at
These are
creature.
dangerous.
They are. But they are majestic creatures.
You can just hear it from a distance.
Man, like, Man, look at them, though. Beautiful, majestic creatures. Man, they used to wipe these things out by the millions. Like, man, in the Wild West, they were pests, according to them, and also the food source of the Native Americans, which were fighting against the U.S. government at the time. So the U.S. government took the trick of getting rid of their food supplies to try and subdue them, and it actually worked.
Yikes.
Yeah, did you not know that?
No, I knew that. I just said yikes.
Oh, yikes, man. Like, that was like a sound effect. I was like, oh, you did not know that? And they were like, no, I knew. I was like, oh, okay. But honestly, these things are pretty neat. Dangerous, though. But I like the buffalo nickels. Have y'all ever seen them? A buffalo nickel? Oh, let me see if I can type this in for y'all here. Here we are. I like these nickels. I thought they were cool. But anyways, a big thanks to your support and help this channel to keep them running. And we're on the next one.
We also have a $20 support that just came in from none other than Ross, all the way from Australia, where all the deadliest animals reside. But thank you very much, Ross, for that support. He said, they asked me, Sir, why did you tell the G7 leaders that you're the boss? He said, the boss. You can't spell boss without a B. Honestly, it's just because I prefer they don't call me daddy. That's what they say. Like Ruta. Ruta, they call him Ruta. Not like the Ruta, but like Ruta. They said, sir, did I mean that's my safe word, sir? Sir, just ask my friend Putin. They said, call me daddy. That's what they say. Sir. I said, roll up that magazine, baby, and spank me with it. I tell you, that magazine, that does a number on somebody there. But what say you?
Oh, keep going. Furniture stores. Let's go shopping. Oh, yes. But beyond that, though, a big thanks to your support, Ross, and helping this channel to keep on going. And I got to say that was one hell of a good one right there. And so humongous thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 10 from Ulf Hednar, and they said, other than the drones, Ukraine has done for us, sent 1,700 troops to Iraq war and took 60 casualties, and also sent medical, demining, and transport personnel to Afghanistan, and the U.S. acts like that's meaningless.
Yeah, the modern U.S. is very unappreciative of all the stuff that other countries have done for us over history. Like, you know, if France was being straight up, the Macron ought to be going around going, you should say thank you to me, bitch, because we supported your country like 250 years ago. It's like, honestly, you know, it's like when you think about it, it's like we kind of, according to the whole you owe us thanks thing, we kind of owe the French an eternal debt because if it wasn't for them, America wouldn't exist as it does today. But, you know, many people in the current U.S. administration don't know that because they're historically challenged, or they look at history in a very warped view. But a big thanks to you for support and help this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 10 from none other than Crispy, and thank you very much, Crispy, for that $10 support. And also, while we're at it, a big shout out to Sylph, who put in a 5 as well, and a big shout out to both of you for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And a big shout out to the both of you. Y'all been doing amazing work supporting this channel and helping to keep on running. And we're greatly appreciative of it. What can we say? And so a big thanks to y'all once again, and we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Daniel P. Gunn, and Daniel said, go Team USA. They defeated Australia 2-0 today, and we have won Group D. They will move to the next round.
Hey, and I actually saw that right here. Look at that. Hey! And Haiti got beat 3-0 by Brazil. Who could have imagined that?
Oh, man, that was the biggest shock of the day. I'm more shocked about this than that whole Iran deal collapsing.
Honestly, that is kind of the most shocking thing. Morocco beat Scotland. That's kind of interesting, actually. The U.S. beat Australia. Nice to hear that the U.S. did beat Australia. Not that we disrespect any of our Australian viewers. We love all of our Australian viewers. It's just that we got to root for our own home country, you know? And Paraguay beat Turkey. Tomorrow's matchups are going to be quite interesting. The Netherlands versus Sweden, the return of the Northern War, Germany versus the Ivory Coast. And who else goes up tomorrow? Tunisia and Japan, and Ecuador and Curacao. Well, we'll have to see how those go. But
Curacao?
Yeah.
They got a team?
Yeah, they have one, apparently.
Damn, that's shocking. Actually, they got a team in Curacao, but the other country I mentioned last night didn't have a team. I can't remember which one that was, though. Yeah, Oman doesn't have a team. Curacao got a team? That was crazy.
I guess they just are better like that. They're built different. And then the next day after that is Spain and Saudi Arabia, Belgium and Iran.
Oh, I think Belgium might take that cake.
be careful. The Iranians might like do something crazy, and the Belgians will give them 300 billion. They've got that winning move these days. Man, if Iran loses the game, they just blockade the Hormuz. Wouldn't that be something? And then Uruguay versus Cabo Verde, and then New Zealand versus Egypt. Dude, the lineups are kind of honestly crazy when you look at them in some cases, like Colombia versus the Democratic Republic of the Congo, or Switzerland v Canada. It's like, what? Who is coming? Like it's just like the most random matchings. But I guess that's what the World Cup is. When in reality, I'm kind of being a little bit stupid by even mentioning like, look at the matchings. But still, very nice to see that they did win. But a big thanks to you so much once again for the support. And with that, we're on the next one.
And this one, oh, excuse me. This one goes to Max Shabai, what's in a 20. And thank you very much, Max, for the support. And also, by the way, you put that in USD. I could have sworn yesterday it did yen. That it must be jet setting or
Mr.
something like that. Or
Worldwide.
yeah, I'm losing my mind or something. I could have sworn it was yen yesterday. But thank you, Max, for that $20 support. They said, sir, you should probably start drinking heavily because it might help your judgment and popularity at this point, sir.
Well, I mean, you don't want to do like you don't want to start drinking heavily, like you want to win something, don't drink. I think we all learned that from the last election. Like not to get too particular there, but there was someone who seemed to be a little bit fond of that drink, and it kind of came across publicly, and a lot of people started to notice. But the big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have another 10 from Max. And he said Turkey changed their name to Turkey. Yeah, so cringe. And it's actually Turkaya. That's what they call it. I refuse to call it Turkaya though. That's silly to me. I'm not even sure why they renamed it. Yes, they have a right to rename their country, but I also have the right not to say Turkaya because it sounds silly. It's Turkey to me, so I just call it Turkey.
Yeah, I call it the Republic of Turkey. This whole Turkaya business is really goofy to me. Turkaya, let me guess. What next? We're gonna have to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America? Come on, get with the program. Whatever it was called when I was born is what it's staying. No changes. And y'all would think. Some people would think, they go, oh, the enforcers are liberal, they make an exception for this one. No, I actually just have that rule across the board. If it was called something when I was born, it's staying that way no matter who changes the name. Like, literally anybody. You can try and change the name to the Arabian Gulf and the Persian Gulf. I'm still going to call that thing the Persian Gulf. Whatever it was when I was growing up, it's staying that way. Doesn't matter who. Dim's the rules. But a big thanks to you for support, Max Shabai. I'd agree it's pretty goofy as well. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 10 from Star. Thank you, Star, for that support. He said, at night 4 of fishing, fish 0 bites, 0 snags, 2 weeds, 4 beer, 1 patience, 0.
Oh, I see. And honestly, I don't get the appeal of fishing. Like, I just gotta say, I always found it, the few times I went and did it, quite boring because nobody would talk when we would go fishing. We just sit there. And I was like, to me, I just never found the appeal of it. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
The other day, I saw some guy fishing in a nearby lake, and he was had like the fly fishing rod, and he like slung it. He went back to cast it, when you swing it to throw it out there in the water, and
Yeah.
he swung it back, and I guess he let go of the release too early or something like that, and went flying behind him, and all you heard in the like bushes was "oh!"
Really?
I was like, no, not really. I just thought it sounded funny to say that, but.
Bro, you had me at that, man. That's something.
I'm losing it, but let me move on. The next one here goes to Thomas, who puts in the 5. And thank you very much, Thomas, for that support. He said, the 2 best things to happen to America, the Enforcer channel and FIFA fans experiencing Buc-ee's for the first time, and keep it up.
Why did you hesitate on that? We've been to Buc-ee's. Bro, you said Buc-ee's. Bro, I was like, yo, it's Buc-ee's. Man, honestly, though, a big thanks to you for saying that we're one of the best things that happen to America. That's very kind of you. I would say there's better things to happen in America, like air conditioning. I think that's better than our show. But I love air conditioning. I adore air conditioning. But I will say, I love to watch all of the people who've come from around the world and are being treated quite well here in the United States and are learning stuff about how we live. Because it actually seems that a lot of them are quite impressed with some things, like air conditioning. Like, crazily enough, a lot of Europeans are like, especially Britons, are like, wow, we need that here. And it's like, yeah, you'll do, because people are like dropping dead of heat stroke in Britain every year because they don't have AC in Britain. Like, they literally have AC almost nowhere in Britain, by the way, if y'all don't know. Or most of Europe, for that matter.
Yeah, they barely have dental care either.
Oh, come on, man. Let's not take a little bit.
I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm just joking. That
Man.
might have been too far. Listen, I have British heritage. How can I hate Britain when I have heritage of such?
I have British friends. Like, I can't hate Britain.
Yeah. At least 5 of my friends are British.
And they think these jokes are fine. Like, man, like, oh, man. But beyond that, though, you know, like, there's some really cool things that they've been finding over here. Also, crazily enough, a lot of Europeans apparently trash on American fast food without ever trying it. Because oddly enough, a lot of them are loving American fast food, like Taco Bell and McDonald's and stuff, like in the American style. Which I gotta say, folks, I kind of find weird because I'm not really that big of a fan of like fast food. Like Taco Bell's okay, I can have it from time to time, but like McDonald's and stuff and the American way that it's made, it's like that's kind of crazy that they like it, you know? But they're finding out a lot about America they never learned. And I always say that traveling around is a great thing. I think it's wonderful that the US can be the host of the World Cup. It's FIFA is the best way to put it. If I think I've got the name of it wrong right there, but it's nice for the U.S. to host FIFA because it lets a whole bunch of international guests come to the United States. It lets us treat them with hospitality and basically be our own cultural ambassadors for what the United States is. Which there are some great things about the United States, and it's good to know that many people around the world are learning about it. And so a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on the next one.
And also, Turkey just got knocked out of the World Cup. But also, moving on to our next one here. Yeah, but moving on to our next one here. This one goes to Blind Man. They lost, but this one goes to Blind Man once again. He puts in a 5. And so he said, have you seen the video showcase the Marines dropped on the new McClune class LSM? It won't be a replacement for the other classes, but a supplement.
Let me go here and let me go get it. Let me go. I don't mean to just make noises, but this is it. It's basically the new amphibious landing vessel, and I haven't heard about it a lot. I've seen it a while ago, but it's definitely needed because of how the Marines are working Force Design 2030. They're largely starting to gear themselves towards a war in the Pacific, which some people are saying, you know, like the season salts, as they call it. Oh, I hate that. That's stupid. It's like, well, they've got to. It's like we're going to war with China. We have to have someone that's specialized in fighting them, and who else but the Marines? That's what they do. Well, that's historically what they do. Like the whole global quick reaction force the Marines are doing now. It's like that's an enigma. Like it's like they never did that in their history. That's more so the outlier than the norm. But I would say that it's definitely a needed shift in doctrine because the Marines are truly some of the highest morale fighting forces, and for the island hopping campaigns of the Pacific, you're going to need a lot of high morale and a lot of folks like the Marines that are willing to get down to business and get into the dirt and fight it out like they would be willing to, and these ships are definitely going to be helping them to do that with the new doctrine that's coming forward. So a big thanks to your support and helping this channel to keep running, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
And this one goes to Detroit Adam, who put in a 5. He said, is he waiting until after the 4th of July, the 250th B-Day party, or waiting for Iran to give Congress a reason to support the war? Thanks, thanks guys, and LSA.
I think they're just really trying to push this thing through no matter what at this point. And so I don't really think it's beholden to either of those. I think it's more so they're just truly trying to make this whole thing work, even with how bad of a surrender it really is. So with that, I hope that has addressed that the best I can, and a big thanks to you for the support. And with that, we're on the next one.
And this one goes to Alex Edwards, who puts in a 5. He said, how about making a YouTube short and using the transatlantic accent?
RFK, is that you?
Let me be straight up honest here. Let me be straight up honest. I thought it said something else about some other type of accent there for a minute. And then also at the same time, I started coughing in the middle of it too. So there was a bit of a combination between a misunderstanding and a hack, a cough.
There's a misconception between a misunderstanding and a hack. Bro, making quotable lines tonight. Damn. Man, honestly, though, dude, you sounded just like RFK at the end of that, man. You said, would you like to make a video using the transatlantic accent? I was like, you good? But outside of that, sure. I mean, we could try. I could do one. It's just, you know, I don't know if it'd be popular or not. Some people love the voices, some people hate them, and that's why we don't really do them a whole lot these days, is that the people who hate them literally lose it whenever we do them. It's crazy. It's like animalistic even. But a big thanks to you for support. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 5 from Talus Auditor, who said, here is for U.S. beating Australia. Technically a draw since we scored, granted our own goal, but a goal is a goal, LOL.
And a big thanks to you for support, Tawasadada. And we thank you for kneeling before the greatness of the United States. I'm just kidding, by the way. I gotta make that joke. It's great to know that it was a good match, a great match, and it's good to know that the U.S. won. But we always love to know that the Australians are our great friends from the land down under. And so a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 5 from Ulf Hednar, who said, plus Georgia has done a lot for us in military assistance as well. And have you two heard about the Flamingo Revolution going on in Albania right now?
I haven't really heard about that a whole lot, actually. I don't really follow a lot of Albanian internal affairs. Albania is a very interesting place, like, in a weird way.
That looks like Huntsville.
Oh, man, this is just the beginning of the iceberg on Albania, man. Like, they got a bunker on every corner of every street. It's a weird place, but I will say, sadly, I don't know about that. I have to declare ignorance. But a big thanks to you for support and help this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 5 from Jake. He said the priorities the government is spending on importing.
Whoa,
Can't read this one right here. This is not good. This is a political right here. This is about as political as it gets. But thank you for the support.
This is a political in the danger. Like, right, he said like that German guy. This is a political in the great danger.
This is a bad right here. But the next one goes to the back of Fly, puts in a 5, and said, the USA plays Turkey in the World Cup match on June 25th. They are not out. I saw on Twitter, though, let's see here, a Spectator Index, I think was the one that posted it. They said something about they were out, unless maybe they were mistaken.
Maybe they are. Maybe they aren't. Who knows? But a big thanks to you for support, the Back of Fly, and we'll have to see. But a huge thanks to you once again for the support, and we're on to the next one.
We also have a 3 from Plazoth, and thank you, Plazoth, for that $3 support, and we do appreciate it, as always. And also a big shout out to Victorian and Footnote General for each putting in a 1, and we appreciate you both as well for that support. We also have a 2 from 535 Medic, who said the U.S. really doesn't have the balls to finish Iran's situation.
I don't think so either. I'd agree with you on that. But a big thanks to you for support, and it looks like you have another one.
And this one also goes to 535 Medic. He said Iran is stalling to finish a Hiroshima-type device. Oh,
you mean an atom bomb? Oppenheimer, what are we working on? We're working on an atom bomb. What is it going to do, Oppenheimer? It's going to kill a whole lot of people. And then Truman drops it on Hiroshima, and then he's like, oh my god, it killed a whole lot of people. I didn't think it'd do that. It's like, what is this guy, stupid?
Remember way back when Oppenheimer was developing it, like way back in the day, and he got done developing, then they dropped it, and then he walked into the camera and said, I am become death, destroyer of world.
Honestly, man, I'm kind of with Truman's reaction when he went into the Oval Office and did that whole shtick. He said, that was the dumbest shit I ever seen. Don't let him in here again. Like, bro, that's what Truman said. Man, but honestly, it was like,
although, to be fair, though, did he know that they were going to drop it on civilians, though?
Well, yeah, I mean, he did. Like the whole time they were like, we need to come up with this, like, people-killing device that's going to kill, like, tons of people. We need to work
deterrence,
on
though.
No. They made it clear to him that they were going to use it, like, the whole time. Like, and he was like, okay, yeah, that's fine, totally, you know, like, sure. And so he worked on it, made the giant people-killing device, and then they dropped the people-killing device, and it kills a whole bunch of people, and he's like, oh my god, I didn't think it'd do that. It's like, what did you think you were working on? It's like, that's like that would be like saying Hiram Maxim, who designed the Maxim machine gun, didn't know that the machine gun was going to be used to mow down hundreds of people. You know, it's like, that's what it is. It's a bomb. Like, it's like, like, they didn't even have an idea of deterrence back then with those things. They didn't even know what they would do. Like, so he knew that they were making that thing to drop it on the Japanese. Actually, they were going to drop it on the Germans first, and then they switched it to Japan because Germany surrendered too quickly.
Damn. And then in the modern day, they said, I am become meme.
Legalize comedy, legalize comedy.
Yeah, really. So that quote of omnipotence, and then they turned it into, you know, modern day debauchery.
But honestly, man, like, I'll be straight up. I think that Oppenheimer guy got way too up in his own head. Like, for him to be smart enough to work on the Los Alamos project or the Trinity program, it's like, that's a little bit ridiculous that he didn't realize that the giant people-killing bomb he was producing was going to kill people. You know, it's like, if I was working on that, I'd be like, they're definitely dropping this on someone. And they were telling him that the whole time. They're like, well, we're going to drop it on Germany, so we got to pick a proper city. And then they surrender, and they're like, oh, well, they surrender. We're going to use it on Japan now. And then he's like, oh, okay. And then they drop it, and he's like, shocked. That was dumb. But anyways, with that, we're on the next one.
And our next one here goes to none other than Ross, who put in another support, a 10. He said, big shout out to that Thitworm. Long gone, but not forgotten by the LSA.
No one's ever going to forget that big booty worm. I mean, that thing's going to haunt this show for the rest of its history, I think. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 10 from Max Shabai once again. He said, a friend of a friend in Japan took his wife out to dinner to eat an ostrich in Osaka. Because he thought that was traditional American meal. And in Japanese, it's dashao versus gashao. So easily confused.
Oh, that makes sense. And like Japan is a very interesting place with that kind of stuff. They think they still think in most of Japan that it's traditional for Americans to eat KFC on Christmas, which is a marketing campaign scam thing that they came up with in the 70s. I think it was the vice president of KFC Japan that did it. And he said he was like, I know it was a lie and they still do it. But it made KFC a load of money in Japan, so I guess it wasn't that bad. But it's like, damn, that's crazy. There's a lot of cultural misconceptions out there from every country on every other. It's really interesting to see the misconceptions about America though, because in Japan they always think that every single American is like a jacked up Elvis Presley impersonator wearing red, white, and blue clothes. If you look at any representation of American in their media, they're almost all like that. It's really interesting, honestly. Very, very unique. To say it that way. But a big thanks to your support and help this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on the next one.
And our next one goes to Game Theory, put in a 5. And Game Theory said, remember in 1957, the U.S. Operation Plum Bob, Tesla launched a manhole cover into space, a 2,000-pound steel cap at 125,000 miles per hour into the great unknown.
That's true. I think that was actually an unintended...
Imagine that caused a war with an alien species and they come looking for us because the manhole hit them.
Yeah, they actually think there's some argument it might not even be in space. It might have vaporized before it even made it there. But there was one frame from the pictures taken of the nuclear test that looked like the manhole was flying straight into space at extreme speeds. So a very interesting sort of a thing to see. And maybe it is in space. Who knows? But a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 5 from Taoist Auditor yet again. He said, we fight together since World War II. You guys weren't there for Timor. You didn't invite us to Iran. The big one in Asia. We will be there. Oh, the U.S. did invite y'all to Iran. They actually did do that. But it wasn't really an invite. It was more like a demand, which is where they went wrong. But Enforcer, what say you?
Yeah, I would have to say, we'll all be there for Asia again. It's going to be like World War II all over. But we were not there for East Timor. But what's crazy? Y'all were there with us in Vietnam, You was there too. Man, it's kind of wild. Did you know that, Matthew? The Australians were one of the only countries that went with us to Vietnam.
Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah, the Battle of Long Tan and everything, too. It was a really interesting piece of their history. But a big thanks to you for support, Taoist Daughter, and help this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 2 from Alex Edwards, who said bees can get diabetes.
Really? I thought, I'm actually interested. I'm not sure if that's true. I'll assume that it is true. But a big thanks to your support, and help this channel to keep it running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, it is time for us, folks, finally, to get on into the Morse code decoders and 3 live chats. We're going to be making sure to get 3 live chats because of time constraints tonight. Sadly, folks, we're going well over time. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so getting our Morse code decoders first, we have Paul, Kevin, Mason, Joni, Norm, Arabelle, Her Royal Fluffiness, Kush, Commentary Sire, and Brian. And they said, Morse code says, Russia went from saying they are winning the war to now they're losing, but it's good. LLT, LSA.
And ding! That's the sound of money. I'll hit that down on the nail. That is the Morse code message of the night. Jackpot, as they say. And we got to congratulate the Least Mariner Signal Corps impressively for getting that correct time and time again. Truly an amazing and profound thing. And I got to say a big shout out to the Least Mariner Signal Corps once again for making sure to get that message right every night. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
This one goes to Mr. Lightrail, who said, do you guys think a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah will make a difference in the MOU being implemented now? And I hope the hell not.
Generally, from what we know, it looks like it probably will make a bit of a difference in the MOU being implemented, in that it might not be, and the whole talk might collapse. So I would also hope as well that it does collapse. So I hope that does address that well, and we're on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Corey, who said maybe Putin will let Belarus take the fall for popping off a nuke.
Well, it wouldn't really work that way because Belarus doesn't have a way to independently develop a nuke, so everyone's going to know the Russians gave it to them, which means that the Russians basically used it by proxy through Belarus. So all it does is implicate Belarus into the matter, also show that Russia violated the Non-Proliferation Treaty, and it basically ended up with the same end result that everyone knows that the Russians nuked Ukraine through Belarus. So I would say probably not, but it's not out of the question. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and we are on to the final question of the night. And so who is the last person to put in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Marie Jacobs, who said, could Ukraine take ground in Belarus in order to make a deal to swap conquered territory with Russia after the war? Just a thought.
Possibly. It's possible. There was a plan like that earlier on that was leaked from Thug Shaka Central back in the day where the Ukrainians planned on taking border territories of Russia to trade back for their own territory, but I don't really think they're looking to pursue those sorts of battle plans anymore. And also it'd be hard to negotiate handing back land to Belarus, which it would be one party in the conflict, for Russia, a whole other party, to give back territory to Ukraine. That would be a little bit hard to argue or sell to the Russians, really, from a Ukrainian standpoint. So that might not be the case. But I hope that does address it the best we can. And we actually have one more super chat. So, Matthew, what do we got?
This one goes to Max Shibai once again, who puts in another 10. He said, for Andrew getting the KFC Japan thing totally right, and we do all go buy KFC still now. They don't raise turkeys here. But seriously, there are no turkeys in the grocery stores. We have Costco.
That's true. Japan actually does have a couple of Costco's. It's really cool, too. Like a Japanese Costco. How neat. And also, that whole KFC thing is really weird, you know, and it's also even crazier that Japan's national sport is baseball, but it isn't America's, and we made it. You know, like that's also a really weird thing, is that baseball is much bigger of a phenomenon in Japan than it is even here in the United States anymore. Baseball's more of a New England thing these days, but it's nationwide in Japan, the love of baseball. And also, like, another interesting fact, just to throw one more out for you, Max Shabai, since you really appreciate these, baseball was not introduced to Japan because of the U.S. occupation after World War II. It was actually there before World War II. When they started to get a huge amount of trade relations with the U.S. in the very early 1900s, baseball became very well planted then, historically, in Japan, before the Second World War even happened, which is another cool fact. But outside of that, we actually have one more super chat, Matthew. I see you in the chat spamming them good nights. We have one more super chat. So what do we got?
And this one goes to none other than Ross from Australia yet again. And a huge shout to you, Ross, for that second support right there. He said, based on my comments and jokes, some members of the beautiful LSA might think I'm politically opposed to the current U.S. admin. As an Australian, I don't care about the popular vote in the U.S. Just make it someone intelligent next time.
Truer words. like true words have never been spoken, I suppose. Hopefully one day that'll happen. Hasn't happened for the past couple of elections, but hopefully sometime it will. But a big thanks to you for the support and help this channel to keep it running, Ross. And with that, a big shout out to David Ford as well, who threw in a 2 and said, went to the range with a Ruger GP100, 158 grain is hot. Ah, damn, that would be. I guess that's a pretty big one. But a huge thanks to you for support, David Ford and Ross. And a big thanks to all of y'all once again for watching. We will see you all tomorrow, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, to cover the next 24 hours in the news from around the world. And if there is a short war video to be made, I'll be the one making that short war video. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe. Slava Ukraini, Hadam Slava, long live the East Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, we will see you all tomorrow. And also a huge shout out to the over 125,000 people that were here by the end of the stream. And we hope to see you all once again tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern and on that short war video if there is enough news to cover. And once again, a huge shout out to you all for joining us. And of course, Slava Ukraine, Heroam Slava, get some rest, and good night.